day, and then we'll finally get a cool front. I've heard some people call it a cold front. Not really a cold front. It'll be a cool front that moves through. Actually, could see some heavy rain. We'll get a detailed report from John Ross here in just a moment. Already 79 degrees here in Columbia, 78 in Jefferson City. Good morning. I'm Brian Houseworth, and here are some of the stories we are working on for you on this busy Wednesday morning. Missouri's Attorney General wins the GOP Senate nomination in the primary in a landslide, and he wins that last night. Eric Schmidt had about 45% of the vote in a 21-person GOP primary. He will face Democrat Trudy Bush Valentine in November. She defeated Bernie Sanders-backed candidate Spencer Toder by about 17,000 votes. The winner of the Schmidt-Valentine race in November will replace retiring Missouri Senator Roy Blunt. That seat has had a Republican in it since 1986. There's only been two people who have held that seat in the last 36 years. Kit Bond held it for 24 years, and Senator Roy Blunt has held that seat for the last 12 years. There'll be a new person in that seat. It'll either be Eric Schmidt or Trudy Bush Valentine in January. The election, of course, in November. Meantime, a longtime Kansas City television news anchor wins the GOP nomination for West Central Missouri's 4th Congressional District seat. You've seen the ads. Mark Alford had a cross behind him. He says, God has been taken out of our schools. That was one of his big themes, critical race theory as well. Alford says that we are in a war right now in America for the hearts, minds, and souls of the American people. He wins a 7-way candidate primary with more than 35% of the vote. Harrisonville State Senator Rick Bratton comes in a distant second. West Central Missouri's sprawling district has had only 2 representatives in the past 46 years, Democrat Ike Skelton and Vicky Hartzler, so we will only have our 3rd congressional representative from this district in the past 47 years. When we come in to January, the district includes parts of Columbia, Hallsville, Sturgeon, Centralia, Clark also in this district, which is heavily Republican. Here in Columbia, longest-serving member of the Columbia City Council loses his re-election bid. 3rd Ward Councilman Carl Scala upset in Tuesday's runoff election by activist Roy Lovelady. The two tied in the April election with 1,102 votes. Lovelady wins the runoff by 150 votes. As Brandon pointed out last hour, this was a historic runoff. There had never been a tie in a city election until this one. It was very tight throughout the night. At one point, they were only 2 votes apiece, separating them, and then the final 2 precincts, Lovelady ends up pulling it out by 150 votes. He campaigned on a theme: the ward needs someone who will help them learn about issues impacting their neighborhood. In Cole County, 2 veteran incumbent state lawmakers have been reelected, but there's a changing of the guard at the Cole County Courthouse.
Donnell Davidson loses her Cole County Circuit Clerk job. She lost a challenge from Court Marshal Mark Eichels. The GOP primary decided that race in Cole County. Mike Bernskeder headed back to the state Senate. The incumbent defeats Scott Rydell to take the GOP primary. There's no Democrat running for the 6th district seat. Cole County Representative Rudy Veit headed back to the Missouri House. He held off challenge George Bacon in the Republican primary. John Marsh, Zimmer News Network.
All right, John, thank you. We talked about this in detail last night. The Senate Conservative Caucus flexing its muscles. They almost took out Bernskeder in Jefferson City, and they darn near beat Senator Justin Brown down in Rolla. He only won by a few hundred votes in that district. We'll talk more about that throughout the morning. Travis Fitzwater wins in the 10th district, the GOP primary. He'll only have a Libertarian opponent coming up in November, so he will be expected to win that race. And the owner of Quality Drywall Construction wins the GOP nomination for Boone County Presiding Commissioner. You'll recall Dan Atwell not seeking re-election. Connie Leopard easily beating James Pounds Tuesday. She'll face former Democratic Representative Kip Kendrick in November. Judges race on the Democratic side, very close race. Kayla Jackson Williams narrowly beating Angela Peterson in that race. Our news is brought to you in the 6 o'clock hour by AirServe Heating and Air Conditioning. For all of your cooling needs, log on to airserve.com. 93.9 The Eagle News Time, 6:07. In sports, Adam Wainwright pitching 7 scoreless innings last night. The St. Louis Cardinals beat the Cubs at Busch Stadium 6-0. He earns win number 8 of the year. Goldschmidt, Arenado, Dylan Carlson homering for St. Louis. Wainwright and Yadier Molina had their 317th start as a pitcher and catcher. they pass a couple of legends, Warren Spahn and Del Crandall, for sole possession of second place in Major League history. Those two, by the way, pitched a long time, so much so they actually pitched for two Braves teams. Everybody remembers the Milwaukee Braves, at least some of us do. The team right before that these two pitched for as well, the Boston Braves. Yes, and they end up, that's how long Adam Wainwright and Yadier Molina have pitched together as a battery mate. They've now passed Spahn and Crandall to get into second place. White Sox beat Royals yesterday. The final there was 9-2. Sports brought to you by Betts Jewelers, downtown Columbia. Gifts that last a lifetime. 93.9 The Eagle News Time, 6:08.
I'm ABC 17 Storm Track meteorologist John Ross. It's a weather alert day with feels like temperatures near 105 this afternoon. Storms roll in along a cold front near Sheraton and Macon County by lunchtime. Closer to the dinner hour for folks near Columbia and to the southeast. It will roll through during the overnight hours. Chance for an isolated strong storm is possible, but a bigger impact will be temperatures in the upper 80s on Thursday, but we're back to the 90s over the weekend. I'm meteorologist John Ross, and that's your ABC 17 Storm Track forecast on 93.9 The Eagle.
All right, John, thank you. Right now, our weather is brought to you by Club Car Wash, clubcarwash.com. In Columbia, clear skies, 78.
93.9 Eagle Eye Traffic.
Traffic with MidmoHires.com. Local companies looking for local people. MidmoHires.com. Find a job, post your job opening today. Our roads are pretty quiet here in mid-Missouri. If you want to report a traffic issue, 573-874-9390. I'm Brian Houseworth, 93.9 The Eagle.
What is happening? Broadcasting live from the Zimmer Communications World Headquarters.
Great news for the American people.
This is Wake Up Mid-Missouri with Branden Rathert, featuring Stephanie Bell, news director Brian Houseworth, and Hannah, the producer.
This is why we listen to you. Get ready, pal.
And now, here's your host, Branden Rathert.
Missouri, of course, is a deep red state. It has been a decade since a Democrat has won statewide in a Senate seat. But Republicans in Washington across the board were concerned that if Eric Greitens would become the nominee, he would, in fact, put the seat in risk. And that is what the candidates campaigned on. After spending some time here in the last couple of days with Eric Schmidt, he was quite blunt about the fact that the state simply should not elect someone who is unfit for office, in his words, someone who is an alleged wife abuser and a child abuser. Of course, Governor Greitens denied all of those allegations. So tonight, of course, about 24 hours after the former president issued an endorsement for the two Erics, Eric Greitens and Eric Schmidt, one of those Erics won. But, Don, it had very little, if anything, to do with Donald Trump's half endorsement. It had everything to do with the fact that Eric Greitens collapsed, and the people who know him best, Missouri voters, simply did not want to risk the Senate seat and clearly show they had no tolerance for a return of him to public life.
Scathing editorial to open up the show regarding our U.S. Senate election that obviously we weren't just watching here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri on 93.9 The Eagle nationwide, and there were a lot of Republicans in D.C. that were fingers crossed, maybe little prayers at their desk there in the Capitol. Please don't let Eric Greitens win. We love his political mind. We love his conservative values. We do not like the baggage. We do not like what this will do for us. We can't have somebody like this in the United States Senate. A lot of people across Missouri, I'm guessing, prayers and fingers crossed. Please do not let Eric Greitens win. Ultimately, no matter how much we love his political acumen, no matter how much we love his guns and all that stuff and hunting rhinoceroses and stuff like that, it is ultimately not good for the state of Missouri. In my opinion, common sense won out last night. Welcome to the show, Stephanie Bell. With Ellinger and Associates to my left this morning. If you're watching on the YouTube channel, she's actually off to my right. Your initial reactions, hearing results last night. Let's start with the Senate race.
I was wondering if people, what's that song? Na, 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 na.
Hey, hey, hey.
I mean, I think that's what a lot of people were thinking about Eric Schmidt. And that's my next, or Eric Schmidt, Eric Greitens. That's my next reaction is, are we good? Are we done with him? Are we telling him goodbye? Or is he going to come back? I think I saw he gave a brief speech last night, and he didn't necessarily concede and said something like, sometimes the plan takes time.
That's right.
So, you know,
he's coming back.
So that's my question. You know, is he coming back? Are we done with him? What's going on? I wasn't shocked by Eric Schmidt's win. He ran, you know, a really good campaign. He made a lot of smart decisions. I know, you know, the polling it really was right on. And it was hard for me to believe seeing the polling early on and then seeing the polling break for him so substantially in the last week. But actually, I mean, that was the story last night, was the polling was actually right.
And there's something that was that CNN that you played that clip?
Yep.
Because I hope people listen to that closely, because there was something, Stephanie, your analysis, by the way, spot on, and Brandon hit it on the head earlier with what he was saying, but there was something in that CNN piece that is absolutely wrong. Basically, what that gentleman that was reporting said was that these attacks against Greitens didn't have anything to do with him failing. It was his own undoing. That is not the case. Greitens was polling very high, and these Republican ads that came in from the Family Values PAC, I could have to go back to my desk and see exactly what that PAC is, but those ads that had the woman talking and saying he beat the children, the lip, and this talking, it almost implied that Sheena Greitens was the one talking on the ad, but it was talking about a court affidavit. Those were paid for by PACs that were backed by Republican operatives. Those are what did him in. They ran him over and over again. I bet I got 10 mailers on those things at home, and that is when his poll numbers went down. Until those ads came on, he was right at the top.
I became afraid for my safety and that of our children due to Eric's unstable and coercive behavior. Physical violence toward our children, cuffing our then 3-year-old son across the face, yanking him around by his hair, a swollen face, bleeding gums, and a loose tooth. He said Dad had hit him. I wanted to protect our children because I was afraid of what Eric would do.
That's the campaign ad Houseworth was referring to. Again, allegations. Eric Greitens has denied all of that, but I'll tell you, his ex-wife Sheena and Helen Wade, local attorney, have done very well here. And this has been unfolding in a courthouse here in mid-Missouri in Boone County. But that ad, I agree, it stuck, and people said, yeah, there's been enough allegations over the years that they're consistent with his behavior. And by the way, I know, and my friends at the Boone County Pachyderms the Columbia Pachyderms got onto my rear end one day, or somebody else's, because they were talking about Greitens, and somebody said, we shouldn't be doing this, but that it took hold.
Yeah, and one thing I think it also showed the strength of probably suburban mom parents, kind of in the Youngkin vein, because if you really look at Schmidt and Hartzler, she's really strong on China, but Schmidt could point to all of those school lawsuits and really did. And we got texts yesterday, I'm voting for Schmidt. I loved seeing what he did with CPS. And so I think when people were evaluating records of, we had a lot of good candidates. When they were looking at the candidates, I think they were really thinking about what affected me most in my day-to-day life. And I think that was kind of, what elected Youngkin in Virginia. And I think Eric Schmidt was able to kind of capitalize on some of that vote too.
Hannah, the producer, your immediate reaction to the results last night in our U.S. Senate race?
I was pretty excited. I was surprised that Schmidt won by such a large margin. I kind of figured, just looking at the last couple polls that came out before yesterday, that he probably would come out on top. But the large margin in which he won surprised me.
45%, second closest. Vicky, he doubled Congresswoman Vicky Hartzler, and I want to say this too, really, Hartzler, Schmidt, Billy Long. My dad called and said, I voted for Billy Long. He loves Billy Long, and a lot of people did, and it was a hard decision. I was one of those. It was a game time decision. I went and voted at the Elks Lodge on Highway WW yesterday, and I tell you, man, I had to sit there for a few minutes before I made my vote. Your reactions, would love to hear them. 874-9390, 874-9390. We respond to 99.99% of our text here on the show, so we would love to hear from you, especially if you have never texted the show before, and sometimes we like it the old-fashioned way. We like it when you call in. So that was my big surprise there. I agree with Hannah, the margin of victory for Eric Schmidt in that U.S. Senate race. This is Mr. Schmidt last night.
Not too far from here. I worked at Grant's Farm while in college, giving tours and taking out the trash. And don't we need a little bit more of that in Washington right now?
Eric Schmidt, by the way, we reached out to his campaign, asked him to be on here, and they said, no, it's probably not going to happen today. 4th congressional district race, and again, I guess a little bit of a surprise, the margin of victory for Mark Alford over Rick Bratton.
Yeah, it really did. We thought coming into this that Taylor Burks would have a bigger vote count based on mid-Missouri, But what we didn't take into account is they took a big chunk out of his, even with putting northern Boone County in. He was much more well-known in southern Boone County. He was from Ashland, et cetera, Hartsburg. A lot of that went to Blaine Luetkemeyer's district. He still performed pretty well, but in a crowded field, a lot of his district was gone. Kalina Bruce did well at the beginning of the night, and then she faded because her district, obviously very, very edge of that district. And the vote count early on, and it came in late, Harrisonville and western Missouri, the big vote totals. And I thought Bratton, because his senatorial district would take in, I thought he would do better. But that ad with Alford, and we'll ask him about it, that ad with that cross, and he said God was taken out of the schools, that ad ran over and over again, and it clearly resonated because honestly, that ad ran a lot. I'm going to have to ask him, did that same ad run in Kansas City? We know it ran here, but it must have worked because he had big vote totals even here.
So his opponent, congressional 4th District GOP nominee, 4th Congressional District, Mark Alford, also known as the Kansas City TV guy, he joins us 7:35 this morning. He's very likely going to be repping you because his candidate, the Democratic candidate, is a guy by the name of Jack Truman.
From Lamar.
Missouri. Additionally, Blaine Luetkemeyer, he had some competition, nothing doing there. He's going to be joining us 6:35 this morning. And on the local front, and there's a lot more we're going to get to this morning, but we want to start moving forward to get into the daily DC rundown. There were some other things happening locally. Would love to hear your thoughts. 874-9390. John says via text.
John says, can Greitens please go away now?
Well, he says it's not over.
I feel like Greitens is going to pull like a Hillary Clinton. She just won't go away. She'll lose a race, and then you think she's done, and a couple years later, there she is again, running again for a different office.
And here in town, I think the big thing is Carl Scala, who admitted in city council meetings he is part of the problem, not being able to get stuff done. I don't know if he realized he was doing it. He loses 12-year incumbent in the city of Columbia on the city council, loses to Roy Lovelady. And this was a historic event that happened in mid-Missouri yesterday because there was the vote in April, and they tied at 1,102 votes apiece. Roy Lovelady beats Carl Scala. Roy Lovelady is also going to be joining us this morning here on the show on Wake Up Mid-Missouri on 93.9 The Eagle. Getting ready for the Morning Bell with Stephanie Bell. What are you looking at for us this morning, Steph?
Well, I think overall we can say last night was a win for Trump. We're going to take a look at other states.
Wake Up Mid-Missouri with Branden Rathert. It's what happens when you let emotionally unbalanced people play in a room full of microphones. 93.9 The Eagle.
Stop by Club Car Wash. Get an unlimited membership for just $20 a month. See more details at clubcarwash.com. It's 79 degrees.
Fox News, I'm Roger Stern. It was the first electoral contest of its kind since the Supreme Court struck down Roe v. Wade. Voters in Kansas defeated a move to strip abortion rights from the state constitution.
Supporters of the measure issued a statement saying they're going to continue their fight.
Fox's Jill Nato. In Michigan, Tudor Dixon won the Republican primary to challenge popular incumbent Democratic Governor Gretchen Whitmer. Dixon on Fox's The Ingram Angle.
My message to Gretchen Whitmer is watch out. Your record stands strong, and it's bad.
In Arizona, Trump-backed Republican Senate candidate Blake Masters will face incumbent Democrat Mark Kelly in November. And Katie Hobbs won the Democratic nomination for governor. No winner yet on the GOP side. America is listening to Fox News.
And now award-winning local news coverage with Brian Houseworth on 93.9 The Eagle.
93.9 The Eagle News Time with Robinson's Cleaners. Robinson saves you time. We do have a scorcher right now here in mid-Missouri. It's going to be another hot day today. Sunny with a high today of around 96. Heat index will make it feel like it's at least 105. Heavy rain in the forecast, though, for tonight. Good morning. I'm Brian Houseworth. Here's some of the stories we are working on for you on this busy Wednesday morning. Missouri's Attorney General vows to go to Washington to battle socialism. Eric Schmidt winning a 21-candidate primary to win the GOP U.S. Senate nomination with 46% of the vote. Congresswoman Vicky Hartzler comes in second in the primary, 137 votes, 37,000 votes back. Trudy Bush Valentine, the winner of the Democratic U.S. Senate primary. She wins by 17,000 over Lucas Kunz. The winner of that race, Schmidt-Valentine, will replace in November retiring Senator Roy Blunt on Capitol Hill. In the new 3rd Congressional District, which is primarily East Central Missouri, but also takes in parts of Columbia and Ashland, heavily Republican district, Blaine Luetkemeyer reelected in the Republican primary with almost 70% of the vote last night. He will face Bethany Mann, a Democrat from the St. Charles area, coming up in November. Congressman Blaine Luetkemeyer tells 93.9 The Eagle he is excited about his win.
We worked very hard over the last 2 years and the previous years before that to make sure we address the issues and listen to the concerns of the citizens of the district that we represented.
Congressman Luetkemeyer also tells us he would like to chair either this House Small Business Committee or Financial Services. Columbia activist Roy Lovelady upsets veteran 3rd Ward Councilman Carl Scala, and the voter turnout here in Boone County, 23% of the vote. 633. And our news was brought to you this hour by MidAmericaMortgage.us, and apply now for a loan on your dream home. Let's take a look right now at sports. Many of you knew about the Cardinal game last night and had to switch over to KTGR. That's going to be very rare. Obviously, Brandon and I were here on 93.9 The Eagle, but you were able to at least hear the game over on 100.5. Adam Wainwright, 7 scoreless innings last night. Cardinals beat the Cubs at Busch Stadium.
And it bummed me out. Harrison Bader traded away from the Cardinals yesterday.
And, that caught me by surprise. It really did.
Love Harrison Bader. Excited that he gets to go to a serious contender in the New York Yankees.
Yeah, I agree with that. And that story, honestly, has not gotten a lot of attention anywhere because little bit maybe in St. Louis. That's about it because of the election, everything going on. Cardinals do beat the Cubs 6-0 yesterday. Wainwright's 8th win of the year. They play again tonight. Cardinals-Cubs, Busch Stadium, 6:45. White Sox beat the Royals 9-2. As Brandon pointed out, Bader gets traded. That's a big deal. And then we had Vin Scully passing away as well. He's a legend, not just in baseball, but in football as well. He is the guy that actually broadcast the catch by Dwight Clark, 1982, 49ers and the Cowboys. Who can forget that call? 6:34. Traffic check with MidmoHires.com. Local companies are looking for local people. MidmoHires.com. Find a job or to post your job opening today. Our roads right now are pretty quiet here in mid-Missouri. If you do have a report of something going on the roads, definitely give us a call or a text, 573-874-9390. We'll have more team coverage in less than 30 minutes. We have breaking news immediately. I'm Brian Houseworth, the 93.9 The Eagle.
This is Wake Up Mid-Missouri, featuring Branden Rathert on 93.9 The Eagle.
There's more listening to do. And I think the job of a representative, if you're going to represent the people, you really have to know their needs and what's going on in their communities. And so I'm going to work with Taylor and the other candidates to get to know the people in their particular regions, their particular districts.
That's Mark Alford referring to Taylor Burks. Mark Alford moves forward that 4th congressional district race on the Republican side. He is going to be joining us 7:35 this morning. Right now we're getting ready to chat with Blaine Luetkemeyer. He usually moves forward in the 3rd congressional district race. But first I want to mention, I
know exactly where this is headed.
I'm glad to know I'm not the only one that does this. I have a nickname on the show.
JJ, Joe Jr.
Joe Jr., because something Joe Biden and I have in common is we're stupid sometimes. Joe more often than me. But
no, you're not stupid. You just have lapses and cognitive,
got something going on there. So Hannah apparently has, here at 6:36 in the morning, has already pulled a Rathert, as we call it around here.
I did. So we get a printout with the show clock, and it's the schedule for guests for the morning. And I went to call our first guest, and when he answered, "This is Mark," I was really confused because we're chatting with him in an hour.
Yeah.
And I was expecting this is Blaine.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I called you an hour early."
Was he mad?
No, he was really cool about it. He kind of chuckled a little bit. He's like, "I was already awake, so it's good."
All right, very cool. Mark Alford. So we'll try again. Now, at 7:35, when Mark Alford, who very likely is going to beat Jack Truman in the general in November, remember, you call Mark Alford at 7:35, not Blaine Luetkemeyer.
So basically, I just have to read the paper.
Yeah.
Okay. Just checking.
Follow directions. This is Wake Up Mid-Mo. I am Branden Rathert, Stephanie Bell, Brian Hausworth, Hannah, the producer, Blaine Luetkemeyer, third district, 3rd congressional district congressman, joining us on the show now. We got it right, Blaine. We got the right guy on the show now. How are you this morning?
I'm fantastic. Good to be with you, Brandon.
Well, glad you could be here. Your reaction through any of this race, and I know politicians, we take every race seriously, but at any point in this race, you had a couple of challenges from some outsiders. At any point, were you concerned, like, hey, man, I may not move forward in the GOP primary here?
Well, I mean, you always, again, like you said, take it seriously. You never know. There is a lot of anti-incumbent sentiment out there right now that can upend even the best known and the best candidate out there. So you don't take anything for granted. You do your work. And, as long as you continue to listen to your constituents and do the work they request you to do, you usually are rewarded for that. And I think, our record speaks for itself. A few years ago, we were actually recognized as the top legislator in Congress. That means House and Senate both. So, a lot of groups come to us because we have a great group of folks on my staff, both my constituent part of it as well as the legislative part of it, to address issues, to work on things, because I have a reputation of somebody who gets things done. I'm somebody who will work on those issues. I have a staff that's very capable of doing that. So I think, people find out about that. The endorsements that I got, from Trump all the way to Farm Bureau to NFIB, Right to Life, and all the, NRA, 100% rating for years and years. So I think all those things make a difference, and they all people when they look at that record, they finally realize that we've got somebody we can trust here. So let's give him another go around.
Trump endorsed GOP 3rd congressional district winner Blaine Luetkemeyer, current congressman, joining us on the show. And we heard there Mark Alford, who I'm guessing very likely you both are going to go on and win the general. Have you met Mark Alford, the Kansas City television guy? Have you met him yet? Any conversations with him yet? And I'm asking because it's very likely that you two are going to be working together in D.C.
Yeah, I have. Yeah, he came to D.C. and was doing some meetings with individuals, and we met with him. Bright guy and very articulate, and I think he's going to do a great job. I'm excited for his candidacy and his campaign, and look forward to working with him next session.
Congressman, we appreciate your time. Brian Hausworth here. I do want to point a couple of quick numbers, and I have a question about what you'd like to see happen in the next Congress. But just to put this in perspective, the 3rd district basically is a newer congressional district. It was created kind of in a sense after the redistricting in 2010, and really a Democrat has never held it. But yesterday in the primary, 95,000 people that voted took Republican ballots, 36,000 took Democratic ballots. So well over 2-1, almost 3-1 Republican versus Democrat in terms of who voted in the primary. If Republicans take over the House, and they are confident they are going to, a number of them are confident, but if that happens, and I know there's still a long way to go, ideally, what would be the main thing you'd focus on as congressperson from the district? And I asked you this last night, worth reiterating again, what committee ideally would you like to chair if you had your ideal situation?
Well, if we had my ideal situation, I'd love to chair the Financial Services Committee, but the present individual, a guy named Patrick McHenry from North Carolina, has got one more term to serve there. And on our side of the aisle, we term limit ourselves at 3 terms to be a chairman, even of a subcommittee. So I'm termed out of my subcommittee, so I will get a new subcommittee assignment. And so the fallback position for me is I'm the top Republican on the Small Business Committee. So everybody's kind of looking at me to be the next chairman of the Small Business Committee, which is it's still a really good committee and a lot of responsibility. To chair a financial services subcommittee would be great as well. So that stuff will sort it out down the road. But yeah, we're excited to be able to continue to serve in D.C. And with the leadership is constantly talking to me, wanting me to be sure and do this and do that, because I've earned their respect, and they keep giving me different other assignments, stuff that doesn't make the news. But I mean, I was on the COVID committee for a while, and then I'm now on the joint committee on the committee on jobs and the economy, and everything from our chaplain quit a year or so ago, and so I was on the committee to go look for a new chaplain for the House. So I think all of those things indicate that they trust me. They recognize the common sense, the values approach that we have, and want to put that into use for the conference. And so I get a lot of other assignments. I'm on the steering committee, for instance, which is the one that assigns everybody to their different committees, and also it gives people their assignments for our chairmanships of committees. So I think we're excited about continuing our work there in D.C. and all of the different issues that we've been working on for our constituents, whether it be the waters of our rivers and streams, the agricultural issues, which there's a lot of issues that I don't serve on those committees, but yet we work on those issues because of some interest or some concern or some problem with our constituents. So we're glad to do that and glad to continue to do that. We've got a great staff that knows how to work on those things, and so looking forward to November, get past that one, and then we can go to work in January.
Now, you mentioned you had the endorsement of the Missouri Farm Bureau. If we're looking at last night's election results, they had endorsed Kalina Bruce in that election, and now we're sending someone from Kansas City to Congress. And in the same way, they had endorsed Vicki Hartzler, who had, was self-proclaimed kind of the rural candidate. We're sending someone from suburban St. Louis. So, given that agriculture in rural Missouri is so important, how do we continue to make sure those, rural Missourians are represented in Congress?
Well, I think, it's like anything else. We represent our people and our state and our nation on a variety of issues. And I think, the way you do that is everybody has an issue or a group of issues, and they meet with you. I mean, we meet with Farm Bureau and all the different ag groups on a regular basis. So they can explain to us what their concerns are, whether it's taxes or imports or exports or, the EPA rules like Waters of the U.S. for Farm Bureau was a huge issue. The death tax was a huge issue for those folks. So we keep meeting with them, and they keep explaining to us their concerns. And having a farm background like I do, and a business background, I understand farming is a business, but it's a little bit different than some of the other ones from the standpoint you're dealing with agricultural products, you're dealing with our food supply, which we got to make sure we take care of. And so, yeah, I mean, I may not serve on that committee. I actually served on ag when I first got to Congress for one term. But we can still represent all those folks. And in fact, the Ag Committee new chairman next year is a personal friend of mine. He and I came in together and are still very, very close. And so I've got a really good tie there with the future chairman of that committee, and he's the top Republican on it right now. So when I have questions or concerns, I just go to the guy's name is GT Thompson, and I go to GT, and we get the information from him, and he's really, really good at his job. So, yeah, I think we can represent everybody on all these issues. We've done it over the last several years as well, so I think we know how to get it done. People have, again, we've earned their trust by the things we've done for them, the votes we've cast, issues that we've discussed with them, and my staff is very capable of handling all those issues as well.
3rd Congressional District Representative Blaine Luetkemeyer joining us, and your district was one of those affected by the change in the maps. Matter of fact, and I knew it was coming, but I walked into the polling place yesterday, and your name was on my ballot. I do want to ask you this. You got the Trump endorsement. You've been an elected servant for some time now. We hear a lot, and I don't know if you hear it, there's some people, conservatives, that still they're not very fond of you. Why is that, and how do you address those concerns?
Well, there's that group out there that unless you're absolutely positively 100% pure in everything that they want you to do, why you're never perfect enough. Unfortunately, if you want to get things done in Congress, you got to be willing to move the ball forward sometimes incrementally. This is one of the problems Republicans have, is we don't move the ball forward incrementally. We want to throw Hail Marys and touchdown passes every time we get on the field, and it doesn't work that way. The Democrats have taken big chunks of our country away from us, not by throwing Hail Marys, but by being willing to incrementally take a little ground at a time and keep moving the bar. Unless we understand that you have to be willing to take small victories sometimes to be able to move the bar. Yes, you have to be more patient than what we are. You have to have to be willing to work harder because it takes longer to get things done. But our system is very inefficient, very ineffective, and it doesn't lend itself to those Hail Mary passes. And so I'm somebody that understands that we've got to incrementally get to where we want to go. The business guy, I understand that you can't make $1 million today. You got to make it a dollar at a time, and so you just keep plugging away. And I think, sometimes people get impatient about that. They get upset about that. And, I can't do anything about that. It's a system they work with, the process we have. And again, once you understand it so that you can get things done, I think the results of what I've been able to do speaks for itself.
We might lose the battle, but the goal is to win the war. 3rd District Congressman Blaine Luetkemeyer joining us this morning on Wake Up Mid-Missouri on 93.9 The Eagle. Anything else that you would like to add before we let you go?
No, just a big thank you to all the folks who supported us. I understand that this isn't the Blaine game. This is the Blaine's team game, and we have a great team around me to be able to support what we do, both in our legislative office and our constituent office, as well as our political team around us to help us win this election. And we never take those things for granted. I understand that I'm able to stand on the shoulders of a lot of people, and I'm very, very appreciative of all the folks and all the efforts that they put into our campaign. And we'll ask them to help pull us across the finish line again in November. So looking forward to it.
Congressman Blaine Luetkemeyer,
being with you this morning.
Yep. Thank you for your time. We appreciate you getting up early with us here on 93.9 The Eagle.
And while he's doling out thank yous, I think we do owe a thank you to all the poll workers and everybody yesterday. I know it came up at the bar meeting, and someone asked Brianna Lennon and said, hey, can we split the day? It's a really long day for people who have to be there from open to close. And she said, we just haven't worked out the logistics. So for people to be there, 12 plus hours, it's a big commitment. And they go through training, and I had a really easy voting process yesterday. I didn't hear of any irregularities, so shout out to everyone who took the time yesterday to do that.
That was not the case in St. Louis. They had some issues. I don't know if you heard about this. We might cover that coming up here in the next few minutes. 5 minutes from now, I want to give you an update. An extraordinary plane landing on I-70 in Kansas City a couple of weeks ago. There's a new twist to that story. We're going to do that 5 minutes from now on Wake Up Mid-Missouri on 93.9 The Eagle and 93.9theeagle.com. And I do want to mention this real quick. Listener Jeremy's been texting us at 874-9390 and says apparently there's a car wrecked in the median on I-70. This is mile marker 141 eastbound. So that's kind of almost like, I guess, kind of close to the Little Dixie Lake exit area. So if you're in that area, give us a buzz and help us out. Let us know what you're seeing. Glad you
Opinions on social issues? We throw those around too. Wake Up Mid-Missouri on 93.9 The Eagle.
Seeing it on the freeway like that was just absurd. I would never imagine seeing a plane on the highway. It's always supposed to be in the, airports and stuff.
That was somebody who saw that airplane story. Stephanie and I brought you a couple of weeks ago. Pilot got a little Cessna airplane, whatever, lands on I-70 in the Kansas City area like 2:30 in the morning. And this one is like, yeah, it's not something you see every day, a plane landing on the highway. Well, the guy got arrested and has been charged with DUI. The guy's name is John Seesing. He's 35 years old. He's filed a legal petition in this case asking for a judge to review the case. He's fighting his arrest, and he's going to lose his driver's license because he didn't submit apparently to BAC at the time, and that's the law there. So apparently troopers, when they see this, so number one, it's 2:30 in the morning. That's the first thing you got going for you. You've landed an airplane on I-70 that connects one side of America to the other side of America, just about. And the troopers suspected that the pilot was drunk just by virtue of the situation.
Yeah, I was about to say, that doesn't sound like a story that started with, a glass of water.
Right. And again, 2:30 in the morning. Now, the guy, he is saying, refusing a test, BAC, leads to an automatic one. As a matter of fact, you get your driver's license. You basically sign an agreement saying, hey, if I ever refuse, which I think can be BS at times, because if you're completely sober and they say, well, we want you to take a BAC, and you can say no, you could lose your license for a year. And that's kind of the argument this guy is using. He's saying, really, you didn't, he's saying, I didn't even refuse the test. He's saying they had no reason to test me. And I'll say this to back the guy a little bit. To be able to land an airplane on I-70, I think takes some type of lucidity there. You got to have some amount of sobriety to be able to accomplish something like that and not hit any cars or any other traffic while you're landing an airplane on I-70.
I don't know. It was just lucky enough that I think some drunkenness had to have been involved.
It reminds me, remember one of the Bushes landed a helicopter years ago and had loaded guns and dogs and prescription pills and all that? It makes me think of that story.
Hey, weather could get expecting pretty serious rain later this afternoon. Brian Hounsworth is going to cover that for you at 7:03, 7:10. More analysis. Big takeaways from the elections yesterday. Eric Schmidt moving forward in that Senate race. Salter Lawn Service, one call does it all, including concrete work. If you get a chance, two things. Number one, I'm going to ask you for a favor here, okay? If you go to the Wake Up Columbia Facebook page, you can watch Wake Up Columbia on our Facebook page, but you'll also see this video is Salter Lawn Service. Everybody knows when it comes to tree trimming, tree removal, yard cleanup, landscaping maintenance, all that. Everybody knows that about Salter Lawn Service now because local company, been here a long time, but they do incredible concrete work. As a matter of fact, recently got to hang out with some of the crew there at Salter Lawn Service, and we have posted video of it, like before and after video on the Wake Up Columbia Facebook page. So you can be the judge. You be the judge. You go to the Wake Up Columbia Facebook page, watch this video that we have put together for Salter Lawn Service. You can see the work. Then you can call the folks at Salter Lawn Service, say, hey, I need concrete work done. Salter, one call, does it all.
Moving on to November, I'm Chris Foster. Fox News. Primary results from 5 states are in Arizona. Blake Masters, endorsed by former President Trump, wins the Republican primary for Senate. He'll face incumbent Democrat Mark Kelly. The Republican primary for governor in Arizona is too close to call just yet. Missouri Attorney General Eric Schmitt wins the Republican primary for Senate there. It was primary day in Michigan.
Republican Tudor Dixon will face Democrat Gretchen Whitmer, who seeks a second term as governor. Dixon says the difference is simple.
This is going to be an epic battle between a conservative businesswoman and mother and a far-left birthing parent and career politician.
Over in Kansas, Mark Holland won the Democratic primary for Senate and will take on GOP incumbent Jerry Moran. Out in Washington state, 2 House Republicans who voted for the Trump impeachment, Dan Newhouse and Jamie Herrera Butler, finished in the top 2 of their primaries and will advance to November. Gernal Scott, Fox News.
Voters in Kansas reject an amendment removing abortion rights from the state constitution. President Biden signs more executive orders on abortion today.
Those orders to support patients who travel out of state for reproductive health care, that's expected to be covered by Medicaid. The order also aims to ensure health care providers comply with federal non-discrimination laws so that women receive medically necessary care without delay. Several court battles continue in states that have already or are about to ban the procedure, like Idaho, Kentucky, and Louisiana.
Fox's Jill Nato. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's trip to Taiwan is over, a trip opposed by the Chinese government.
It's really clear that while China has stood in the way of Taiwan participating and going to certain meetings, that they understand that they will not stand in the way of people coming to Taiwan.
China considers Taiwan its territory. America's listening to Fox News.
The economy is headed directly for a disaster. The Fed can either raise rates to lower inflation and trigger a stock and housing market crash, or it can keep rates low and potentially cause hyperinflation. That is why you must take action to protect your savings right now. Hi, this is Stephen K. Bannon, and I urge you to diversify your retirement account out of paper assets and into physical gold. The Birch Gold Group IRA is what I recommend to all my family and friends. And today, Birch Gold is giving away a free information kit about how gold IRAs work. To get your free copy, just text the word PROTECT to 989898. It's crucial for you to get this information before an economic disaster is in full swing. Again, text PROTECT to the number 989898 to get your free information kit on gold. There's no obligation or purchase required, so do it now. Text PROTECT to 989898. Action, action, action. Use your agency. Take action today.
93.9 The Eagle News Time with Robinson's Cleaners. Robinson saves you time. It is 7:03, and we have a scorcher right now in mid-Missouri. A high today in the upper 90s. Heat index will make it feel like it's 105 degrees. We're at 79 right now here in Columbia, 78 degrees in Jefferson City. Good morning. I'm Brian Houseworth, and here's some of the stories we are working on for you in the 7 o'clock hour. We begin with a quick traffic note. Several of you have called Hannah, our producer, about a wrecked vehicle in the median on I-70 at the 141-mile marker. It's about 7 miles from Kingdom City. I just spoke to the Missouri State Highway Patrol dispatchers, and they tell me that that vehicle is being removed right now. If it hasn't been removed already, there is troopers on the scene right now. The injuries in this crash are minor. People apparently slowing down, though, to take a look at that wrecked vehicle in the median. They're slowing down to take a look at it, but the injuries are minor and no serious injuries are reported. Missouri's Attorney General has won the GOP U.S. Senate primary in a landslide. Eric Schmitt with 45% of the vote and a 21-person primary. He will face Democrat Trudy Bush Valentine in November. She did defeat a Bernie Sanders-backed candidate, Spencer Toder, by 17,000 votes. Winner of the Schmitt and Valentine race in November will replace retiring Missouri Senator Roy Blunt. Also reelected, at least on the Republican side, is Congressman Blaine Luetkemeyer from St. Elizabeth. His district includes parts of Columbia as well as Ashland and Hartsburg. It goes into East Central Missouri, Warrenton, and St. Charles, heavily Republican district. Congressman Luetkemeyer tells 93.9 The Eagle that if he is, and if the Republicans do take control of Congress he would like to be considered for a key chairmanship because he is the ranking Republican on the House Small Business Committee.
Certainly entertain thoughts and be willing to take that committee again. We've got to sit down with leadership, see what their plans are for that.
And the congressman says if that happens, he would have to get a waiver to serve on the House Financial Services Committee. He would like to continue to do that as well. He will have a Democratic opponent in the heavily Republican district in November. A longtime Kansas City television news anchor wins the GOP nomination for West Central Missouri's 4th congressional district seat. He is Mark Alford, his campaign focusing on God and God being removed from the schools. He wins a 7-candidate primary with more than 35% of the vote. Alford says that we're in a war right now for the hearts, minds, and souls of the American people. He will join us live after our 7:30 newscast right here on 93.9 The Eagle. Here in Columbia, longest-serving current member of the City Council loses his re-election bid. 3rd Ward Councilman Carl Scala upset in Tuesday's runoff election by activist Roy Lovelady. He campaigned, Lovelady did, on a theme that the ward needs someone who will help them learn about issues impacting their neighborhood. He'll be sworn in at the next meeting. Scala, the longest-serving current member of Columbia City Council. He's been on the council for 12 years, and he also was seeking his 5th term, and he has been defeated in the race by about 150 votes. Owner of Quality Drywall Construction wins the GOP nomination for Boone County Presiding Commissioner. She is Connie Leopard, and she beats James Pounds on Tuesday. She says the bedrock of our community is infrastructure and public safety. Her opponent in November will be former Democratic State Representative Kip Kendrick. Mr. Kendrick served 6 years in the legislature from 2015 to 2020. He describes his leadership style as listening, learning, and then leading in the race, and leading as well. Those two will face each other in November. And there was also a close race on the Democratic side yesterday for Boone County Associate Circuit Judge Kayla Jackson Williams, narrowly beating Angela Peterson in that race. Our news is brought to you in the 7 o'clock hour by the folks at the Candy Factory. The Candy Factory is online at thecandyfactoryonline.com. They're in downtown Columbia. Our news time, 7:07. Turning our attention now to sports. We're going to start with a legend. I'm sure you'll hear a lot more about this after the election because it didn't get a lot of coverage last night with everything going on, but we'll start with Vin Scully. Vin Scully, the legendary voice of the Los Angeles Dodgers, has passed away at the age of 94. Great voice. If you ever heard it, you would definitely know how he sounds, how he painted the picture. Generally worked in baseball without a color commentator. He also called football. He called the 1977 Cardinal-Dallas Cowboy game at Busch Stadium, one of the best games that you could ever imagine. Tom Landry and Don Coryell going at it. And he also called the game, the catch, if you will, back in 1982, the 49er game against the Dallas Cowboys. But Vin Scully passes away at the age of 94. R.I.P. to him, one of the best announcers you could ever imagine. He also did a lot of other sports as well. Adam Wainwright pitching 7 scoreless innings last night. Cardinals beat the Cubs at Busch Stadium 6-0. Win number 8 of the season. And Wainwright and Yadier Molina had their 317th start, pitcher and catcher. They passed Spahn and Del Crandall, sole possession of second place in Major League history. That's Warren Spahn and Del Crandall. White Sox beat the Royals yesterday by a score of 9-2. Sports brought to you by Betts Jewelers. All right, John, thank you. And our weather brought to you by Steve's Pest Control. Bright sunshine, 79. And our traffic check is brought to you by MidmoHires.com. Local companies are looking for local people. MidmoHires.com. 7:09 here on 93.9 The Eagle and 93.9theeagle.com. Again, for those of you out on I-70, There are motorists who have been slowing down to take a look at a wrecked car in the median on mile marker 141 near Kingdom City. That vehicle, if it hasn't been removed already, is about to be removed. There are minor injuries in that incident, and the Highway Patrol is working that, so no serious injuries to report. We'll have another update at 7:31. Breaking news immediately. I'm Brian Houseworth, 93.9 The Eagle.
Missouri, of course, is a deep red state. It has been a decade since a Democrat has won a statewide in a Senate seat. But Republicans in Washington across the board were concerned that if Eric Greitens would become the nominee, he would, in fact, put the seat in risk. And that is what the candidates campaigned on. After spending some time here in the last couple of days with Eric Schmitt, he was quite blunt about the fact that the state simply should not elect someone who is unfit for office, in his words, someone who is an alleged wife abuser and a child abuser. Of course, Governor Greitens denied all of those allegations. So tonight, of course, about 24 hours after the former president issued an endorsement for the two Erics, Eric Greitens and Eric Schmitt, one of those Erics won. But, Don, it had very little, if anything, to do with Donald Trump's half endorsement. It had everything to do with the fact that Eric Greitens collapsed, and the people who know him best, Missouri voters, simply did not want to risk the Senate seat and clearly show they had no tolerance for a return of him to public life.
Eric Schmitt, huge win, actually, in that Senate race. That's one of my biggest surprises. Not so much that Eric Schmitt won, but the margin of victory in the state of Missouri. He garners 45%. 45% of the vote in a race that featured 197 candidates. And I might be exaggerating there a little bit.
Three Erics.
Three Erics. So Trump picks up a win and two losses in his endorsement column yesterday.
And a partridge in a pear tree.
That is Hannah, the producer there.
Good morning.
There is Stephanie Bell.
Good morning.
That's Brian Houseworth.
It's good to see you.
My name is Branden Rathert. Thank you for being here. Your reaction, would love to hear it. 874-9390. It's interesting because as we're interacting with you this morning, a lot of folks via text, 874-9390, folks saying, I went in, I voted for Billy Long. One of our texters says, I didn't know who Billy Long was until he started coming on to your guys' show, and that's who I voted for. My dad voted for Billy Long. And really, with a lot of these folks, I felt like in the Senate race, we're going to be okay anyway. And I love Billy Long, and here's why. His story is great. When he decided to run for Congress, he'd never run for any elected office before. As a matter of fact, he's an old radio dude like Brian Houseworth. But he, remember the story, and he told this story right here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. He's trying to find a firm that would handle his campaign, and he said, well, we're not going to put you on TV. And Billy, he's a large guy, large dude. And they said, well, we're not going to put you on TV because your size is going to turn voters off. And he said, that's BS. Finally found a firm that would rep him. And he says, but here's the thing, I'm going on TV. They said okay, and the rest, as they say, is history. He went on to win. I was surprised he didn't get more of the vote, but the margin of victory for Eric Schmitt over Vicky Hartzler, that I think is the big surprise there.
Yeah, it is. There's no doubt about it. And again, for the people on that clip, the CNN just played. The thing that reporter does not point out, those ads with the child being mentioned, the children being mentioned, they definitely had an impact. And those were ads that were put together by and I don't have the name of the PAC right in front of me, but they definitely played a huge role. And Greitens was very close to the lead right until those ads started playing.
But I think maybe that's what he's saying is when he says the people that knew him the most, and that is the voters of Missouri. And I think that does tie into that very powerful campaign ad.
That ad was, but he had other issues before, but he was still hanging right in there up until those other ads started running.
A swollen face, bleeding gums, and a loose tooth. He said Dad had hit him. I wanted to protect our children.
So that is an ad, and that is what's happening there. It's a female narrator, and she is reading documents that are right here in mid-Missouri in Boone County. This narrator is reading documents related to moving that child custody case down to Texas, and that ad, you're right, as we've been following poll numbers, Stephanie's been on this stuff like a hound dog, man. I mean, every day searching out this stuff, and you can almost see when this ad came out and when those poll numbers, because Eric Greitens, at the beginning, there was, some mixture, Hartzler, Schmidt, Greitens, and then Greitens, for what polls are worth, was leading in several polls over a period of time. That ad came out, and not only did it flip the lead in polling leading up to yesterday's election, it resounded, apparently, with the margin of victory for Eric Schmidt.
Well, and I know, Brian, you had talked a little bit about this PAC, but Politico has a really in-depth piece about how that PAC came to be. And interestingly enough, it was really kind of started by a guy named Johnny DeStefano, who served as a long time in the Trump White House. And it was also primarily funded by someone very familiar to mid-Missourians, Rex Sinkfield. So that article, kind of ties in how that, because even though the ads came out really late, it kind of profiles the work that was done really early on and leading up to those ads that ultimately sunk Greitens.
And Sinkfield's got so much money. I mean, he could write checks just left and right, and he's got a lot of money. There's no doubt. It's a good article, by the way. There is no doubt. The other thing that kind of grabbed my attention about the numbers from the Senate race, Trudy Bush Valentine, by the way, wins a very tight race on the Democratic side, and there's still some bitterness between some Democrats and her, but she ran a tough campaign, came in a little late, but she still wins that. But if you look at Republican votes that were cast versus Democratic, the rural vote, by the way, was about 4-1 in rural areas, and when you throw in St. Louis and Kansas City and then get the Columbia votes, takes it down to about 2-1. But 654,000 people voted in the Republican primary for Senate yesterday, 367,000 for Democrats. That is a huge majority for the Republicans. Doesn't mean that that's going to translate in November, but that's a big sign, especially in rural Missouri, because you looked at the rural counties, almost all of them took red ballots.
Well, and I think the other big story from last night is that Governor Parson is going to get 2 statewide appointments. And if you think about that, I mean, and I think I've said this to Schmidt's face, so I don't think this will offend him, but the treasurer and Fitzpatrick, the treasurer is really like a nobody, right? It's really, it's hard work to get elected, but as far as their authority and what they can do, people don't pay, it's kind of like the auditor, people don't pay as much of attention. So Schmidt got a huge bump when Parson picked him out of that treasurer role and put him in the AG role, and then he was really catapulted onto the national stage by his own talent and work in the office, obviously, but that was a huge get. So, I mean, think about Parson plucking someone else off, from either, within politics right now or wherever, and elevating them to the state attorney general. That is a huge move for, an individual. And then also with the treasurer spot, even though it doesn't have as much authority, putting someone on the national state or on the statewide stage is a really big deal. And, Fitzpatrick was previously, unknown. And now look at him. He got appointed to the treasurer. Now he's state auditor. And, I think it raises your name ID, certainly, and makes you a player, especially for a young person, for years to come. So that is huge. And I can just imagine the governor's phone ringing off the hook today of people who are interested or who have thoughts about that.
Hey, Mike, what are you doing? Nothing. How can I help you? I was just wondering, how's your day going? And who are you thinking for some of those appointments? It'll be interesting to see some of those names. It could eventually be appointed. Current treasurer Scott Fitzpatrick, he wins the primary for state auditor position currently held by Nicole Galloway. She is not seeking re-election in November. Another big surprise for me, voter turnout.
Yeah, but and it was way low in Boone County compared to what we were going to. And as I told Brianna, we don't look at those projections she or Mr. Ashcroft give and go back and say they're wrong. But obviously, Jay Ashcroft and Brianna Lennon both went with what the absentee ballot showed. Weather was really, really rough yesterday. As I pointed out, I saw some elderly people in oxygen tanks and walkers and stuff. That were that is, and it had to be close to 100 degrees when I was voting, but that they got out and voted. Yeah. So I thought, my goodness, if they can, and they did, and I applaud them for doing that, and I voted. But I think that heat had something to do with it. But 23% in Boone County, that means more than, what is that, 75% of the people didn't come out?
Yeah.
That's exactly, well, actually more than that.
In Audrain and Randolph County, 22% turnout. And I'm stunned by that. We talked about the eyes of the nation were watching what was happening here, and we're getting 1 out of every 5 registered voters to show up. If you didn't vote, I would love to hear from, and we're not here to make fun of you or whatever, but I'm curious as to maybe why you didn't get out and vote. 23% turnout. Yeah. That's wow.
It was disappointing, but I'd also point out it was the first ballot I've seen in a long time without any issues on the ballot here in Boone. Now, there were some issues around the state in other localities, but I mean, I got to the end of my ballot and I was kind of like, that's it? Am I done?
It was short, but yet in the 3rd Ward, and I live in the 3rd Ward here in Columbia, a lot of renters live in the 3rd Ward, and a lot of them where I live, and a lot of them simply did not vote. 200 people at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. That in a hotly contested race, I was expecting more than that. And Lovelady and Scala, I can tell you, I saw both of those guys up and down Clark Lane. They worked that very, very hard. In the heat, every day they were out there campaigning, and the turnout was still low.
City Councilman Carl Scala, 12-year incumbent, this guy.
I don't mind sharing the tennis courts with pickleball players.
I don't mind. I understand pickleball. He loses. I don't think I'm exaggerating to say that is a stunning upset in what was an historic election yesterday, because they were a statistical dead heat in April. Want to move forward real quick, 874-9390. Les, welcome into the show. What can we do for you?
My congratulations to Eric Schmidt. He's going to make a great senator. I want to know, Brandon, have you reached out to one of our favorite co-hosts in your talk show, Laura Nauser, to see how her endorsement of Burks went? Just to see her opinion on that. Let it go. Right?
So there's the let it go. You're a good callback, by the way. I see Laura Nauser, and we still chat on a regular basis. Former city councilwoman. She was the one who had a recall effort that was started by Taylor Burks, who failed in his effort to advance in the GOP primary for the 4th congressional district race. And it was funny. Hannah remembers on the time because Laura, whenever the name Taylor Burks would come up, Laura would she was just. And finally, there was a song that we would have to play. To say, come on, Laura, we love you, but you got to let it go. Les, great callback. We appreciate you being a part of Wake Up Columbia here on 93.9 The Eagle. Steph, any other interesting, a lot of interesting stuff. Mark Alford, 4th Congressional District race. He's going to be joining us 7:35 this morning.
And locally, I had heard from a lot of people that they thought Travis Fitzwater would lose his Senate race, but he picked it up, and I think that was a shocker for a lot of people. And then also the Cole County clerk. All the important court cases go to Cole County. The Cole County clerk was ousted by a challenger as well.
Coming up, what's hot with Hannah? What's smoking today, kiddo?
Hershey's has already told us that there might be a Hershey's chocolate shortage for Halloween. Brock's released a really nasty candy idea that is not going to live up to the hype.
That's what's hot with Hannah today. We're going to do that coming up 7:25-ish on 93.9 The Eagle.
putting the fun in dysfunctional. This is Wake Up Mid-Missouri on 93.9 The Eagle.
Good morning. It's 7:25-ish, which means it's...
Wow, it's 7:27.
Like Eric Greitens said last night following his huge loss, these things happen in God's time. I've been trying to get What's Hot with Hannah. We do it every morning, 7:25-ish, which usually happens.
Are you going to talk until 7:29?
And it usually happens at 7:28, but we want to give Hannah the stage for a few minutes, but we're just always running behind. But I'll borrow...
We?
We'll borrow some words from the defeated U.S. Senate candidate Eric Greitens, and I think, what did he say yesterday? These things happen in God's time,
And sometimes it takes patience or something.
Yeah. So I'm gonna plagiarize little Eric's.
So it's now 7:28.
Time for What's Hot with Hannah.
So Hershey's chocolate has kind of said that, for Halloween this year, they might have a little bit of a Hershey's chocolate shortage. And the internet's, pretty up in arms about it because you can't have Halloween without Hershey's chocolate. Well, now the candy company Brock's is releasing like a limited edition candy corn that comes in some really bizarre flavors, and they're all mixed together in one bag. They're calling it Tailgate Candy Corn, and it's got 6 flavors in one bag, and it's fruit punch and vanilla ice cream. That seems pretty normal. Oh, maybe not normal.
By the way, candy corn, what flavor is it supposed to be anyway?
Garbage.
Yeah.
You're only supposed to eat it with peanuts, so it tastes like a payday.
So then on the other side of the bag, it says that the other flavors are hot dog, hamburger, and popcorn.
Meat-flavored candy?
Yeah, no. I'm not a fan. I don't like candy corn anyways. It's the texture for me, and then it just tastes like crap. But I do not want to eat a hot dog or hamburger flavored piece of crap either.
Putting on my tinfoil hat here for a second. I think that's BS when Hershey, we're going to be short on Halloween candy, but we're going to give you, a couple of months notice, so there'll be a rush on our candy. I want to go back, something recovered really quick. Robert texted. We're asking about folks, dismal voter turnout for one of the biggest primaries in a lot of years. And I love this from listener Robert, why he did not go out and vote yesterday. We'll have that for you 5 minutes from now. And the 4th Congressional GOP primary winner, Mark Alford, is here.
Stop by Club Car Wash to get an unlimited membership for just $20 a month. See more details at clubcarwash.com. It's 79 degrees.
Fox News, I'm Roger Stern. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi has departed Taiwan after a visit which infuriated the Chinese government. But Pelosi defends the trip.
43 years ago, with the Taiwan Relations Act, America made a bedrock promise to always stand with Taiwan.
Pelosi is the highest-ranking U.S. official to visit Taiwan in 25 years. Katie Hobbs won the Arizona Democratic primary for governor.
We're going to talk about our affordable Arizona plan to lower costs for families.
We're still waiting for results in the Republican race for governor. And following Arizona's Senate primary, Trump-backed Blake Masters will face Democratic incumbent Mark Kelly. In Kansas, voters defeated a move to remove abortion rights from the state constitution. This after the Supreme Court's abortion ruling. America's listening to Fox News.
And now award-winning local news coverage with Brian Houseworth on 93.9 The Eagle.
93.9 The Eagle News Time with Robinson's Cleaners. Robinson saves you time. It is 7:31. We do have bright sunshine here in mid-Missouri. 80 degrees is our current temperature. We're expecting a high today around 95 degrees with a heat index making it feel like it's 105. Good morning. I'm Brian Houseworth. Here are some of the stories we're working on for you in this 7 o'clock hour. Missouri's Attorney General vowing to go to Washington to battle socialism. Eric Schmidt winning a 21-candidate primary He wins the GOP U.S. Senate nomination with 46% of the vote. Congresswoman Vicky Hartzler comes in second in the primary. Trudy Bush Valentine winning the Democratic primary there, and they will face each other, Schmidt and Valentine, in November. Also, 2 veteran incumbent state lawmakers from Cole County reelected. There is a changing of the guard at the Cole County Courthouse, though. We'll have a report from John Marsh coming up at 8:03. Senator Mike Bernskatter wins a very tight reelection. That was unexpected. He was down part of the night, but he comes from behind to win thanks to the Cole County and Jefferson City numbers. Also, Representative Rudy Veit survives a primary challenge. Columbia activist Roy Lovelady upsets veteran 3rd Ward Councilman Carl Scala in Tuesday's runoff election. The election returns close throughout the evening. Lovelady wins the race by 150 votes. 3rd Ward has a lot of poverty here in Northeast Columbia. Mr. Lovelady says the ward needs someone who will help them learn what is happening on the council. And municipal employees in Jeff City receiving a $2,040 pay increase along with another one-time payment. Mayor Kerry Turgeon tells the Eagle the salary increase is full-time employees, part-time employees with benefits as well. It's 7:33. In sports, we talked about this earlier. Vin Scully, who is the voice of the Dodgers, started with them when they were actually in Brooklyn. Just an amazing amount of history. 67 years as the voice of the Dodgers. He has passed away at the age of 94. Great baseball announcer. Also did a lot of football as well. The old football Cardinals back on CBS when he worked at CBS back in the 70s under Don Coryell. He did a lot of games at Busch Stadium. Also called the Catch, the game with Dwight Clark. In fact, if you look at the coverage of his death in San Francisco, they barely mention he was the announcer of the Dodgers. It's all about the fact that he called that football game involving the 49ers and the Dallas Cowboys. Of course, the Giants and Dodgers, big rivals as well. Adam Wainwright, 7 scoreless innings last night. Cardinals beat the Cubs 6-0 at Busch Stadium in St. Louis. Paul Goldschmidt, Arenado, Dylan Carlson, all homering for St. Louis. Bader gets traded to the New York Yankees, by the way. Cardinals and Cubs again tonight, 6:45 first pitch right here on 93.9 The Eagle, and the White Sox beat the Royals by a score of 9-2. Our news time, 7:34. Traffic check, MidmoHires.com. Local companies are looking for local people. MidmoHires.com. Find a job or post your job opening today. Roads are pretty quiet here in mid-Missouri. If you'd like to report a traffic issue, you can give us a call or a text, 573-874-9390. More team coverage in less than 30 minutes, and we have breaking news immediately. I'm Brian Houseworth, 93.9 The Eagle.
Thanks for making Wake Up Mid-Missouri your favorite morning show. 93.9 The Eagle.
I'm so grateful to every Missourian who believes in our campaign and our vision for a better Missouri.
Trudy Bush Valentine last night following her victory in the Democrat primary for U.S. Senate. Schmidt v. Valentine. Welcome into the show. My name is Branden Rathert. There is Stephanie Bell.
Good morning.
Brian Houseworth is here.
Great to see you.
That's Hannah, the producer.
Good morning.
Appreciate you being here. Something we can do for you, 874-9390 before we bring forward our next guest, Mark Alford, who won the 4th Congressional District race to replace Vicky Hartzler. Before we chat with him, we were talking a little bit. I was shocked, disappointed, what have you, lack of voter turnout yesterday. We talk about one of the most watched primaries in recent years. Everybody nationwide was following this race. Boone County, less than 1 out of every 4 registered voters showed up?
About 20, I don't have it right in front of me, 23.5 basically percent.
Randolph County, and then there was another counties here in mid-Missouri, like 20 to maybe 25%. And I just don't understand how that is when you have such an important race, especially at Senate in the 4th Congressional District race, why more people did not show up to vote. It just blows me away.
I assume heat had. I don't know, but you know what? It could be sunny and 65 degrees, and a lot of people don't show up to vote. That's That's just it's unfortunate. And Jay Ashcroft's lamented that. Breonna Lennon has lamented that. But, I mean, it's a very important issue.
And listener Robert texted in 874-9390. I love his take on this. He says, I did not vote due to the requirement to choose a party, which I feel some of that. I went into where I went and voted yesterday, and it's like, the people are asking me, which ballot do you want? And they're all wearing masks, and they reek of patchouli. I'm like... So, so when I ask for that Republican ballot, and I might be exaggerating a little bit because the poll workers, wow, what they do. I mean, they don't get there at 6 o'clock when the polls open. I think because Breonna Lennon and I, Boone County Clerk and I had talked about this because I wanted to be a poll worker. But it wouldn't work out. But I think it was something like you show up at 4:30 in the morning. So they did remarkable work.
Yeah, my polling place, everyone was smiling. It was really easy. It was a fast turnaround. But yeah, I went to a meeting and someone said, hey, can we do half shifts? Because it really is a long day. And she said, it just wouldn't, it's not feasible right now. And so think about that. You take off work or you just spend, I mean, a lot of those folks, as we know, are older and it's a 15-hour day. I mean, it's a big commitment.
Some of those folks are like 51 years old, Stephanie. Now we welcome into the show Mark Alford. He moves forward in that 4th Congressional District GOP race. Mr. Alford, welcome into the show. I want to ask you, take us to that moment last night when you knew that you had won. What was that like for you?
Wow. First off, good morning, everyone. Good morning to your listeners. I tell you what, my wife, Leslie, and I, we had a little war room set up in the back of our headquarters. We wanted to keep things small and kind of approach it from an humble angle and not have too big of a party scene going on. So we were set up in our headquarters in Raymore in Cass County. We had a little war room set up in back. Our strategists were there, our campaign manager, and my wife was back there. And when the numbers finally got to that point where it was insurmountable for the opponents to achieve success and we knew that we were going to win this thing, Leslie and I just looked at each other. We hugged. I've got a great picture of that moment. I'll never forget it. But it's just surreal because this was not on my radar a year and a half ago to do this. And what we've been able to accomplish with our team and with the volunteers and the supporters, the 24 counties in this district is simply phenomenal.
And I know you have spent time here. A lot of folks were hoping that Taylor Burks, our local guy, would win. And I guess you guys, you've actually been talking. By the way, I did our news partners at ABC 17. I know they spoke with you last night. Lucas Geisler had a great conversation with you. And I rather appreciated the fact that you heaped kudos on Taylor Burks. I got to tell you that's on a personal note. I thought that was really cool. How do you feel about moving forward? Your opponent, Jack Truman, not a whole lot known about this guy. How do you feel about the general coming up, 100 days from now?
Yeah, I feel very good. We're going to be like a plus 25, I think, in the district, leaning Republican. I don't know much about Mr. Truman. I know he lives down in Lamar in Barton County. I know he doesn't want to come out of his basement or house because of COVID, does not want to do any debates, only wants to talk on the phone or Zoom. That will not be happening. If you don't want to debate me face-to-face, you can wear a mask if you wish, but we're going to see eyeball to eyeball and talk about what's going on in America and how to solve our problems.
Mark Alford, who is known as the Kansas City TV, at least in this neck of the woods, Mark, where you're from, I don't know if that's how you were referred to, but I'll tell you here in this area, a lot of, the Kansas City TV guy. He wins the GOP primary to take the seat formerly held by, still held technically by Congresswoman Vicky Hartzler. He's hanging out with us here on Wake Up Mid-Mo on 93.9 theeagle.com.
Brandon, thanks so much. Mr. Alford, we appreciate your time. You would be in obviously a very Republican district. You're the clear favorite, the 4th district, only the 3rd person to hold that seat in the last 46 years. Ike Skelton held it for 34 years, got beat and passed away. Vicky Hartzler for 12, so we'll be watching that closely. Your ad, I'm curious about the ad that ran here in mid-Missouri because it clearly resonated. I looked at your numbers here in mid-Missouri. You did very, very well. You got a cross behind you, and you looked directly into the camera, Mr. Alford, and I'm paraphrasing, but basically you said, God has been taken out of the schools. God should be back in the schools, basically, was the message. Talk about that and the importance of it, and clearly it resonated because that ad ran over and over again, and your numbers here in mid-Missouri were pretty good.
I think people are longing to get back to God, not just in our nation, but in their homes. I've quoted President Reagan many times on my stump speeches and everywhere I go. I did this last night in our acceptance speech because I think it's so relevant and so timely. 40 years ago, President Reagan, and this is not the exact quote, but it goes something like, it's time to realize that we need God more than he needs us. It's time to reassert our trust in God, and it's time to turn to God for the healing of our nation. And we've got to do something to heal. We are more divided than we have been since the Civil War. And we are not going to agree on everything as a nation, but we've got to come to some sort of sanity in America where we're sitting down and talking and reaching decisions based on truth. And until we start using the proper terminology and get on a level playing field, we are not going to reach the truth that we need to solve the problems.
So for those folks here in Boone County who haven't had a chance to sit down with you face to face or meet you, what's your plan between now and the general election to, for visiting the, outside parts of your district?
Well, I think we were the only candidate to travel to all 24 counties in this district. We traveled almost 60,000 miles since November, going to every town square, going into businesses and listening to what's on the hearts, souls, and minds of people. And we're not letting up. Our last stop yesterday on Election Day, I was not going to sit by and left, and twiddle my thumbs and not have anything to do. We got out on the road. We went to Bates County, where, by the way, we took in 57% of the vote yesterday. We traveled to Johnson County and Warrensburg. We traveled to Lafayette County, Odessa, and Lafayette, we picked up 71% of the vote there. And so I think just us traveling and listening to people, we were criticized early on, and this floored me. We were at a forum, and one of my opponents said, you need to stop listening to people. You need to have your own agenda. And folks, I'm here to tell you today, the way our founding fathers had this whole thing set up with the House of Representatives, it's not about Mark Alford's agenda. It's about the 770,000 people in the district. It's their agenda and what they want to take, what they want me to take to Washington, and the stories they want me to tell in Washington and in the national media. And I have told them time and time again, the only thing I want to do for you, I want to be the strongest, loudest, most consistent, unwavering voice for you that I can be.
Mark, I want to play Mark Alford, 4th Congressional GOP candidate. He's moving forward to the general in November. To your point, I want to talk about a local race here. We had a city council race. Carl Scala is a 12-year incumbent on the city council who in his, I don't think he knew he was doing it, but he admitted in a city council meeting about a problem he hadn't been able to solve despite the fact he's been on the city council for 12 years. He had an opponent by the name of Roy Lovelady. They had a statistical dead heat in our municipals back in April. They tied at 1,102 votes apiece. A resident gets up at the city council meeting the other night and said this to Carl Scala, who's sitting on the dais.
Mr. Carl here, his election is tomorrow, his re-election, I should say. And I've met your competitor in that hall. Do I care for him? No. Do I know he's listening? Yes.
And that's to your point about the importance of listening. And I'll let you know, Mark, Roy Lovelady, what I think is a huge upset locally. He defeated this 12-year incumbent in a do-over election. So that's it's speaking to exactly what you said. We're going to get going here. I know you're busy. A lot of people want your time this morning. When are you coming to mid-Missouri? Because we need to get you in studio to give our audience more opportunities to meet you and get to know you. When are you coming to Columbia?
I would love to do that. I'm going to take a week and a half off to reinvest time with my lovely wife and my kids who are grown, but they have given me so much leeway in our relationships, and I want to reinvest my time to just be a family guy again. I know that I didn't get a lot of votes in Boone County in that area, But those Republicans who really didn't vote for me, I do respect their choices that they made. And a lot of good candidates were in the field. Taylor Burks has actually become a good friend of mine. We were texting for the last couple of months, words of encouragement. We would do forums together, and we would tell each other good job. And there were other candidates in this race. Sunday, Bill Irwin, who was a candidate in this race and ended up getting a large portion of the votes, we actually attended the same church service on Sunday and ended up praying together for all the candidates in this race. And we've got to get back in a point in the Republican Party and in America and the state of Missouri where we're not enemies, but we have a common goal, and that is to bring conservative values and tell their stories in Washington. Because until we do that, until we unite, we are not going to defeat the liberal, progressive, woke mob that is trying to indoctrinate our children and not give parents a say in their kids' education.
Matter of fact, I heard you wish happy birthday to one of Taylor Burks' kids last night. I think one of Taylor's kids is having a birthday today, so it does sound like you guys have a good friendship. Incidentally, in Boone County, Taylor did beat you here in
he should have. Yeah.
Yeah, he should have. So a lot of love for him. Mark Alford, anything else you want to say before we let you go?
I look forward to being the next congressman from the great 4th Congressional District of Missouri. I look forward to being your voice, and I will always be listening.
Please promise me that when you come through here, specifically, we need to get you here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri, because we cover, from Jefferson City to Fulton and beyond, and Montauk County and down to the Lake of the Ozarks. I mean, a huge swath. Sedalia. So you need to come in and see us.
I promise I will.
Okay, reach out to me.
For 30 years, I got up at 3 in the morning. So
that's the KC, the former Kansas City TV guy, now the GOP nominee for the 4th Congressional District race. We are very appreciative of your time this morning.
Thank you, sir.
All right, Mark Alford there. Going to be facing a guy by the name of Jack Truman. Coming up, I love this Cardinal.
Hey, it's Harrison Bader from the St. Louis Cardinals. He's 6'1", weighs 210, bats right, has an IQ of 160. Come on, really, man. He's 5'6" and weighs 205. He doesn't even know what IQ means. Here's Branden Rathert on Hot Talk 93.9 The Eagle.
All the girlies say I'm pretty fly for a white guy. Harrison Bader, probably last time we'll ever get to use that. Traded away from the St. Louis Cardinals. Had a chance to sit and chat with him a couple of years ago. I want to highlight because he told a beautiful story about his first day, the call up to the big leagues. I mean, you grow up as a little kid and you want to play big league ball and you play college ball and you get drafted and you go to the minors and then you get that call. And the other thing that I find very funny about that is when he did that, he says he's 5'6" and weighs 205 pounds. I don't weigh 205 pounds.
And you're not 5'6".
I had a conversation with Harrison Bader a couple of years ago and asked about the call-up, the big day. Remember, he had an amazing game. He's been traded to the New York Yankees. We got a pitcher in exchange for Harrison Bader, but we talked about that call-up to the big league.
Yes, I mean, I got a call in the morning around 10 o'clock, and my dad actually happened to be in town with me visiting, which was very cool, obviously, for him to kind of experience that because he saw me grow up playing baseball, obviously, since I was 7 years old in the league. So we just literally hopped in an Uber from Memphis and then rolled to St. Louis.
So what was that like when they called you and said, hey, Harrison, what are you doing? We need you to come up. What was that like?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it was a great feeling. It lasted for about 10 seconds, and I kind of refocused and understood what was in front of me. So, yeah, it was obviously a great moment for myself. Obviously, that's something that you work for your entire career. So just to kind of get that and then experience it with my family was even more special for sure.
Your family was able to show up to the game. They put you in that night. You start. Your mom and your sister show up in the middle of the ball game. Ninth inning. You'd been 0 for 3. You're standing at the plate. You deliver a hit. You end up scoring the winning run. This is your first Major League Baseball game. I mean, it's got to be amazing. I mean, because you dream about this as a kid, and then it happens. Tell me about that moment.
You know, for everybody else up there, it was just another game. But for me, it did mean a little bit more, obviously, because it was my first game, it was my debut, and it's something you dream about. So just to kind of get it out of the way and get all the emotions kind of out there and on the field, and then kind of obviously, you know, be a part of such a good win means a lot. So I remember that forever.
Harrison Bader, a conversation several years ago, traded to the New York Yankees. Bummed to see him leave the Cars. He didn't have the big gaudy stats, but he was a hustler. He reminded me of Rex Hudler back in the day, of course, now does play-by-play for the Kansas City Royals. Speaking of the Royals, they traded Whit Merrifield. Now, here's what's fascinating. Here's what's got people talking from a political, social, and sports realm about this story. Whit Merrifield been traded to the Toronto Blue Jays. Remember, just a couple of weeks ago, he did not travel, along with several other Kansas City star players, did not go to Toronto. How come? They required you to be vaccinated. They want your papers when you go into that country. He didn't go. Now he's been traded to a Canadian team. So, yeah.
How's that going to work?
Exactly. And I wonder, is it almost like it was somebody in Royals management really mad and got spiteful? You know what we're going to do with Whit? We're going to trade him to a Canadian ball team. I love that. Welcome into Wake Up Mid-Missouri. Stephanie Bell, Hannah, the producer, our news director, Brian Houseworth. My name is Branden Rathert. Coming up, so there were some elections that went down in Springfield. You might be thinking, well, we don't care what really happens in Springfield. But what happened there on a statewide level could potentially have some real-world impacts on us right here in Mid-Missouri. Stephanie Bell and Brian Houseworth going to break that down a little bit for us coming up at 8:10 here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri on 93.9 The Eagle. I love this. When you get onto the website for Pro Pumping and Hydrojetting, by the way, the website pro-pumping.com, I love it because the first thing it says, thank you for giving us the opportunity to introduce ourselves. And it's a family-owned company. Lovely family, by the way, the Martins are. It says, hey, we're local. We've been doing this for 40 years. And what they do septic tanks, lagoons, grease trap cleanings, things like that. But the hydrojetting, this is high-pressure sludge removal, and it's this high-velocity water jetting. Imagine like you go to a car wash, right, and you're washing your car with that high-powered wand. It's more powerful than that. The benefit for you, this pumps 20 gallons per minute, pressure up to 4,000 PSI, I should say. And it clears away blockages. What do we call those grease burgers or whatever that start to develop in sewer lines? Because over the years, the grease and everything and the wipes that are flushable, that aren't flushable, get clogged, cleans that stuff right out. Learn what they can do for you, pro-pumping.com.
Defending democracy. I'm Chris Foster. Fox News now on her way to South Korea. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi says her trip to Taiwan is about solidarity in the face of Chinese threats.
America's determination to preserve democracy here in Taiwan and around the world remains ironclad.
The Chinese government opposed the visit and meetings with Taiwanese officials, claiming the self-governed island is its territory, now blocking imports of citrus, fish, and some other food from Taiwan. Some primary results. Michigan House Republican Peter Meijer loses his primary to Joe Gibbs. Meijer had voted to impeach former President Trump. Trump-endorsed Blake Masters wins Arizona's Senate Republican primary. Eric Schmidt wins the Republican primary for Senate in Missouri. Trump endorsed both him and former Governor Eric Greitens. Abortion rights are protected in Kansas.
In a first-of-its-kind ballot question in the nation, Kansas voters have decided to reject a measure that would have let the state legislature tighten abortion rules or even ban the procedure. That measure was aimed at overturning a 2019 state Supreme Court decision that said abortion rights were protected under the state constitution.
Fox's Jill Nato in D.C. The greatest baseball broadcaster ever. Not many people disagree with that. Vince Scully died 94 years old.
Little roller up along first. Behind the bag. It gets through Buckner. Here comes Knight, and the Mets win it.
Scully there calling Game 6 of the 1986 Mets-Red Sox World Series. He spent 67 years calling Brooklyn and Los Angeles Dodgers games on TV and radio, a member of the Baseball Hall of Fame, and a Presidential Medal of Freedom recipient. The mobile stock and cryptocurrency trading company Robinhood announces plans to lay off 23% of its workforce, 780 people. The state of New York's fining Robinhood $30 million for violating reporting, anti-money laundering, and cybersecurity requirements. America's listening to Fox News.
The economy is headed directly for a disaster. The Fed can either raise rates to lower inflation and trigger a stock and housing market crash, or it can keep rates low and potentially cause hyperinflation. That is why you must take action to protect your savings right now. Hi, this is Stephen K. Bannon, and I urge you to diversify your retirement account out of paper assets and into physical gold. The Birch Gold Group IRA is what I recommend to all my family and friends. And today, Birch Gold is giving away a free information kit about how gold IRAs work. To get your free copy, just text the word PROTECT to 989898. It's crucial for you to get this information before an economic disaster is in full swing. Again, text PROTECT to the number 989898 to get your free information kit on gold. There's no obligation or purchase required, so do it now. Text PROTECT to 989898. Action, action, action. Use your agency. Take action today.
The Senate is set to ratify NATO membership for Finland and Sweden.
And now award-winning local news coverage with Brian Houseworth on 93.9 The Eagle.
93.9 The Eagle News Time with Robinson's Cleaners. Robinson saves you time. It is 8:03. We do have bright sunshine. 81 is our current temperature here In mid-Missouri, we are expecting a scorcher today, a high of around 96 degrees. Heavy rain tonight will come in with a low near 72 degrees. It'll bring a cool front in and hopefully knock that heat advisory out. That heat advisory scheduled to expire at 8 o'clock tonight. Good morning, everyone. Here's some of the stories that we are working on for you. In this 8 o'clock hour, I'm Brian Houseworth. Missouri's Attorney General wins the GOP U.S. Senate primary in a landslide. 21-person primary. Eric Schmidt with 45% of the vote. He will face Democrat Trudy Bush Valentine in November. They are both from the St. Louis region. Trudy Bush Valentine from St. Louis County. Eric Schmidt grew up in Bridgeton, which is near St. Louis Lambert Field. Bridgeton's in North St. Louis County. He's been living in Glendale and then recently in Jefferson City because he has been serving as the Attorney General. Now, Bush Valentine defeated a Bernie Sanders-backed candidate, Spencer Toder, by about 17,000 votes. The winner of the Schmidt-Valentine race in November will replace retiring Missouri Senator Roy Blunt. A congressional representative from the 3rd Congressional District in Missouri has won his GOP nomination to serve again on Capitol Hill. He'll face a Democrat in November to win that race. Her name is Ms. Mann. She is from St. Charles County. Blaine Luetkemeyer's new 3rd District includes South Columbia, Ashland, and Hartsburg. Congressman Blaine Luetkemeyer tells 93.9 The Eagle he's excited about his primary win.
We worked very hard over the last 2 years and the previous years before that to make sure we address the issues and listen to the concerns of the citizens of the district that we represented.
Congressman Luetkemeyer tells 93.9 The Eagle that ideally he would like to serve as the chairman of the House Small Business Committee, but it would also require him to get a waiver on the Financial Services Committee. Again, the election will be in November, and again, part of Columbia is in that district, primarily South Columbia, again, Ashland and Hartsburg in that district as well. In the 4th District, which also includes part of Columbia, in this case, northern Boone County, the GOP nomination goes to Mark Alford, a longtime WDAF Kansas City news anchor in the Kansas City area. He wins a 7-candidate primarily easily with more than 35% of the vote. Harrisonville State Senator Rick Bratton comes in a distant second. Alford says we're in a war for the hearts, minds, and souls of the American people. He says Lamar, a Democrat, Jack Truman, will be his opponent in November, and he told us on air he wants to face Mr. Truman in a face-to-face debate before the election. The owner of Quality Drywall Construction wins the GOP nomination for Boone County Presiding Commissioner. Longtime incumbent Dan Atwell is not seeking re-election. Businesswoman Connie Leopard easily beating contractor James Pounds on Tuesday. Leopard says the bedrock of our community is infrastructure in public safety. She'll face former Democratic Representative Kip Kendrick in November. He served 6 years in the legislature from 2015 to 2020. He describes his leadership style as listening, learning, and then leading. There was also a close race on the Democratic side for Boone County Associate Circuit Judge Kayla Jackson-Williams, narrowly beating Angela Peterson. 2 veteran incumbent state lawmakers from Cole County have been reelected. There's a changing of the guard, though, at the Cole County Courthouse.
Donnell Davidson loses her Cole County Circuit Clerk job. She lost a challenge from Court Marshal Mark Eichels. The GOP primary decided that race in Cole County. Mike Bernstetter headed back to the state Senate. The incumbent defeats Scott Rydell to take the GOP primary. There's no Democrat running for the 6th district seat. Cole County Representative Rudy Veit headed back to the Missouri House. He held off challenge George Bacon in the Republican primary. John Marsh, Zimmer News Network.
And here in Columbia, major upset on the city council race. The longest-serving current Columbia City Council member, Carl Scala, unseated last night by activist Roy Lovelady. Mr. Scala has been on the council for 12 years, four-term incumbent, if you will. He was seeking his 5th term. These two ended up in a tie back in April with 1,102 votes each. The race decided by 150 votes. At one point, several points last night, the race was 2 or 3 votes separating them. A couple of precincts that came in late ended up winning that race for Mr. Lovelady, who will be sworn in at the August 15th Columbia City Council meeting. Our news is brought to you in this 8 o'clock hour by Air Serv Heating and Air Conditioning. Our news time is 8:08. Turning our attention now to sports. Adam Wainwright pitching 7 scoreless innings last night Cardinals beat the Cubs 6-0 at Busch Stadium. He wins number 8 for him on the year. Paul Goldschmidt, excuse me, Nolan Arenado and Dylan Carlson homering for St. Louis in the game. And Yadier Molina looked really good. He returned after being out for rehabilitation, if you will. They get their 317th start as pitcher and catcher, passing Warren Spahn and Del Crandall, sole possession second place in Major League history. Now, they did that not just with the Milwaukee Braves, those two, but also with the Boston Braves. So the Cardinals win that game again 6-0, and they play again tonight. 6:45, the first pitch right here on 93.9 The Eagle. You'll hear it here tonight. White Sox beat the Royals by a score of 9-2. And sad thoughts this morning. Vin Scully, just an incredible, legendary voice, how he painted the picture as a broadcaster. He's the guy that called Hank Aaron's record-setting home run, actually stepped away from the microphone, as I recall, about 60 seconds after that. He just painted the picture so well. He has passed away at the age of 94. So R.I.P. to Vin Scully. Our news time, 8:09. All right, John, thank you, and great work today with Megan. Megan has had her hands full as well, doing a great job on the elections and then covering the heat advisory as well. We appreciate both of you. Sunshine here in Columbia, 81. Traffic check, MidmoHires.com. Local companies are looking for local people. MidmoHires.com. Find a job, post your job opening today. Roads have been pretty quiet here in mid-Missouri. We do appreciate all of the texts, by the way, election-related texts. And we did have a couple of texts earlier, several of you in the Kingdom City area about that vehicle in the median. And just to let people know, that was a minor accident, but apparently a lot of people slowing down on I-70 to take a look at that wrecked vehicle in the median. That has since been cleared 7 miles from Kingdom City, mile marker 141, and the police basically have cleared that scene. So appreciate all the information on that. I'm Brian Houseworth, 93.9 The Eagle. Hey, Stephanie, that Morley Swingle article is really interesting. That caught me.
Missouri needs a senator who wakes up every day to fight for them in their future. I will be that senator. I will be your voice. Not too far from here, I worked at Grant's Farm while in college, giving tours and taking out the trash. And don't we need a little bit more of that in Washington right now?
Eric Schmidt wins the GOP primary for U.S. Senate, beating out Hartzler, Greitens, McCloskey, Billy Long, and a field of a whole bunch of other folks. We did reach out to him and asked his camp to be on the show this morning, and they said not today, but keep in touch. Meanwhile, we've had on Mark Alford, who won the 4th congressional district race. We've also had on Blaine Luetkemeyer. I don't think that was any big surprise. Blaine Luetkemeyer was going to move forward in that primary there.
But I'm glad we had him on.
Yep, glad we had him on. And, of course, especially now with his district changing. And it was kind of weird because I knew in the district change affected me, and so I knew it was coming. But it was kind of odd when I walked into the polling place yesterday and they gave me my thing. And I was like, oh, man, there's some different names on there. One of the big things that surprised me, and there were some surprises, though I think the biggest surprise, the margin of victory for Eric Schmidt. The other thing that surprised me, I think, was low voter turnout. And people are responding via text. Jack says, so why do we have to have so much voting security if only like 1 out of every 5 voters is showing up? I hear what you're saying, man.
Yeah, and, it is interesting, but the turnout is, it is disappointing that more people don't take the time to there are veterans who did literally go to war to protect people's right to go vote. I hear we had some people say, well, they didn't like the fact that they got asked to pick a party. Well, then you need to go to Jeff City and get the law changed if you don't like that. I mean, the election judges are following the law. That is what they're required to do because it is a nominating process. That's why we had some listeners wanted to vote in the Democratic and Republican primary. That can't happen. You can pick one, and either one would be fine. You could also vote in the Constitution Party. Still, the 23% or 24%, it's still good in the sense that those people did come out, and I can tell you this, that the turnout in the 3rd Ward where I was a little low, but there were other precincts that were higher there. And both of those candidates, Scala, and I know you've talked about him, and Lovelady, they worked up and down Clark Lane. They were in the Whitegate area. They worked that hard, and you know, it wasn't that. It was not a nasty race between the two. I know they disagree, but it's not as bitter as I think some people think.
I think somebody called it in the city council meeting the other night when they got up to the podium and said, which I don't feel like you should be talking about this kind of stuff at a city council meeting, but the guy went on to talk about some other stuff. Yeah. One of the first things he mentioned, he looked Carl Scala in the eyes and said, "Hey, I've met your opponent. Do I like him? No. But is he listening to me? Yes." And apparently voters in the 3rd Ward, you get rid of a 12-year incumbent and vote for this Roy Lovelady. I think that's spectacular. Welcome to the show. This is Wake Up Mid-Missouri. Brian Hausworth is the news director for the entire Zimmer Radio Network. Stephanie Bell is our counsel here on the show. Thank goodness she keeps us out of trouble sometimes.
Our voice of reason.
I am no one's lawyer here.
I love the legal advice yesterday that you offered regarding taking pictures in the polling place.
I'm not offering any legal advice, but I am just offering a word of wisdom to friends in that you probably don't want to post a picture of your filled out ballot online.
And the other voice of reason, she acts as my conscience sometimes, Hannah, the producer.
Hello.
My name is Branden Rathert. Thank you for being here. This is interesting. So we were paying attention to a little bit of what was happening in Springfield because there were 2 important state Senate races there. And a lot of folks go, well, why do we care about what's happening there? And it's kind of important, actually.
It is, and it turned out it was much bigger than Springfield. It was the races we were watching were the Lincoln Huff, and then obviously this race involving a guy by the name of Curtis Trent. And the race, Curtis Trent and Brian Gellner, the way Don Luzader describes it, 2 Republicans went at it. He said it's the nastiest race he's ever seen. Apparently they called each other pigs. There were other allegedly pigs and things like that were said. In the end, Trent wins it. And why it's significant for our listening area is that, and it turns out a race over in Franklin County, a race in Jasper County, and the race in Jeff City with Mike Bernskatter, it all relates to this friction in the Republican Party between the conservative caucus and the more, for lack of a better term, the more establishment.
So what it boils down to is our state senator, Caleb Rowden, could be losing, and I hate to use the phrase losing his grip on the Senate, but less power, perhaps.
Yeah, he is definitely going to be the Senate President pro tem. The issue, though, is that, and I can tell you this, Bob Onder's retiring or term limited out, so they pick up, they add to the moderates were confident that they get Wieman in there. That didn't happen. Nick Schroer wins. And then down in Jeff City, that narrow victory for Bernskatter, that one was close. Justin Brown wins by 400 votes. That was very close. But the conservative caucus will pick up Schroer, almost certainly Curtis Trent, and then they pick up in the 26th, which is the current pro tem's district, Ben Brown. And this is the biggest upset. Nobody saw this coming. They pick up, Jill Carter upsets a 12-year longtime veteran state lawmaker, Bill White, 8-year member of the House, 4-year member of the Senate. And the reason she won, they were upset with they wanted him to vote for a 7-1 map.
In addition to those pickups, Mike Moon and Rick Bratton lost congressional seats, which actually means they retain their Senate seats. Right. So people who are kind of keeping a tally are saying that the conservative caucus actually moves up to about 9. Now, they've had varying numbers, but I think they were down to about 6 at the end of last session.
Because Paul Whelan would go in and out. But I think Moon and Bratton, and quite frankly, I thought both of those had a chance to win. But the picking up the Carter down in Jasper County, and the Bernskatter was down for a while last night, and then Brown down in Rolla again, and also Lincoln Huff with that kind of experience, Lincoln Huff should have never had this close of a race. That was the second race we talked about in Greene County. So Caleb Rowden, bottom line, he'll be the most powerful man in the Senate, but will he be able to get anything done? I don't know right now.
Well, and bottom line is, it seems like it's going to be more of the same in the Senate with a sharp divide, and anybody who wants to get anything done is going to struggle unless they have some sort of kumbaya moment between now and January.
So it kind of, to simplify this a little bit, we have 34 state senators, 24 of which are Republicans, and now you've got 9 that are in that 9-ish in that conservative caucus out of 24 Republican senators, 9 of them conservative caucusers.
And I've said this on air, and people don't understand it because it doesn't make sense if I say it without an explanation. But the 10 Democrats, even though they're in a super minority, the 10 Democrats in the state Senate may be the most powerful 10 people in that chamber, because if they theoretically could use their clout to help Caleb Rowden, but if there's something he's pushing they don't like, they could, because the conservative caucus and Rowden on a lot of issues don't agree. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting. Travis Fitzwater expressed frustration that there's been a lot of gridlock. I just don't know right now. But Caleb Rowden is definitely going to have his work cut out for him.
Text here, Wake Up Mid-Missouri. Nathan says, I think a lot of people have low voter turnout. That's another big story in my mind. I think Cole County had about 30%. Boone County below that. Randolph County, some other counties. I'm just stunned. Nathan says, I think a lot of people don't vote because they want to complain about who's in office, but don't want to have any blame for who's in office. In other words, by not voting, they do share blame for who's in office. It's the old George Carlin reasoning to voting.
And secondly, I don't vote because I believe if you vote, you have no right to complain. People like to twist that around, I know. They say, well, if you don't vote, you have no right to complain. But where's the logic in that? If you vote and you elect dishonest, incompetent people and they get into office and screw everything up, well, you are responsible for what they have done. You caused the problem. You voted them in. You have no right to complain. I, on the other hand, who did not vote, who, in fact, did not even leave the house on Election Day.
I love that. And I know people get mad, well, that's not accurate. And I say, well, it's comedy, all right? It's comedy. That's all it is. Also off the text, I want to mention this real quick from one of our listeners. It says, and we're getting some of this now. We haven't talked a whole lot about it. But Richard, since he's put it in a comical fashion, I do want to mention this. He says, you are wham now? WAMM. A couple of folks have noticed.
Wham.
Yeah. I thought because
WHAM is not necessarily the correct acronym. It would be WUM.
WUM, Wake Up Mid-Missouri, because for years we've been known as Wake Up Columbia, and some
I thought
folks
he was talking about Wang Cho.
but a lot of folks been. Yes. Have they been saying Wake Up Mid-Missouri instead of Wake Up Columbia? And yes, you are hearing properly, and it is just kind of better reflect what's happening. We've been talking for several months now. You hear us talking about the growing audience. We have an incredible number of regretful Biden voters that have started listening to Wake Up Mid-Missouri. We have an incredible following of younger people that didn't like paying all these high gas prices since the tragic events of January the 20th of 2021. So we're getting more and more of these people from areas, and Wake Up Columbia is not an appropriate notation of what happens here. So, yeah. It's Wake Up Mid-Missouri, and Richard and a whole bunch of other folks catching on. So, wham, Wake Up Mid-Missouri, which is close. It'd be WUM. W-U-M-M. Coming up, Morning Bell Business News, got a little twist only Stephanie Bell can give you. So, during this recession, a lot of these young people, a lot of these newer listeners that are regretful Biden voters that are just, their finances are strapped, they're finding some respite, but it's an enemy, in effect. That story coming up Morning Bell. We're going to do that 5 minutes from now here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri on 93.9 The Eagle. Thanks for being here. Hitachi Energy right now, they are hiring Hitachi Energy in Jefferson City. Here's the cool thing. A lot of times you get a job, we got all these great benefits, but it's like a carrot. They're dangling a carrot on a stick, and that's not the case with Hitachi Energy. You get benefits starting day one because they value all of their employees, even the ones that just started, which is why pay starts $21, $25, up to $25 an hour with a $3,000 phased signing bonus. Benefits day one. Hitachi Energy inspires the world, and you inspire them. So apply today in Jefferson City or online, HitachiEnergy.com. They're inspiring the next workforce to power the world, and it starts with the facility. It's climate controlled for all seasons, which means it will always be a comfortable place to work. Not every facility around can say that, so let Hitachi inspire the next step in your career. Hitachi Energy's pay starts $21 an hour. Benefits start day one. Apply today in Jefferson City or online, HitachiEnergy.com. Inspire your future. Inspire the next. Hitachi Energy.
Wake Up Mid-Missouri with Branden Rathert. It's what happens when you let emotionally unbalanced people play in a room full of microphones. 93.9 The Eagle.
Good morning, 8:28 time for the Morning Bell Business News with a little twist that only Stephanie Bell can give you. And here's what she's left us with this morning. So, listen, everybody's hurting. That's why we have more and more listeners here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. You've got a lot of young folks, a lot of regretful voters. Voters go, what the hell happened, man? Since January 20th, 2021, and this is even from people that voted for the guys. Like, I can't believe what I'm paying for fuel. I can't believe what I'm paying for groceries. I can't believe what Joe did to our troops in Afghanistan 1 year ago. And here's the real world effects, man. Here's how this plays out. So one of the ways that especially younger people are trying to combat the lack of money that they have anymore, they're resorting kind of back to an old enemy. Credit card debt, which bums me out as somebody. And I don't think this is anything I've ever talked about before, but back in the old days, I can blame everything back on the old days, can't I? Well, back then...
I mean, yeah, you certainly try.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's very effective.
Because what's the thing I lean on? Like, well, I don't behave that way anymore.
Or I'm working on it. Those are your two crutches.
I'm working on it. But it is true because we've all done things that when we were younger we didn't realize. But now as we sit here, we're older, we have the wisdom to know, man, these credit cards, man, be careful because that's what's jacking up credit card debt right now. More and more people, because of inflation, because they have less money, relying on credit card debt. Coming up, and I'm not exaggerating here, what a shock in a local election in the city of Columbia. 12-year incumbent Carl Scala ousted. He's out. He's done. He's gone. People are cheering. The guy who beat him, Roy Lovelady, is going to be joining us 5 minutes from now. ABC 17 storm track forecast, going to be hot today. Heat index over 100 degrees, but then some heavy rain, like maybe around dinner time. Rain tonight, 72, a little bit cooler tomorrow with a high of 89. Right now, it's 82. Weather brought to you by Club Car Wash. Stop by Club Car Wash. Get an unlimited membership, $20 a month. More details, clubcarwash.com.
Fox News, I'm Roger Stern. Voters in Kansas chose overwhelmingly to protect abortion rights following the Supreme Court's decision eliminating Roe v. Wade. Fox's Jill Nato says a move to strip abortion protections from the Kansas state constitution went down to defeat.
President Biden issued a statement saying, "This vote makes clear what we know. The majority of Americans agree that women should have access to abortion."
Abortion opponents vow to fight on. Legendary sportscaster Vin Scully has died. He was 94. Fox's Ted Linder with more.
Scully was the longest tenured broadcaster with a single team in pro sports history, beginning in the 1950s era of the Brooklyn Dodgers of Pee Wee Reese and Jackie Robinson.
And he followed the team to L.A. Team president and CEO Stan Kasten says, "We have lost an icon." America is listening to Fox News.
And now award-winning local news coverage with Brian Houseworth on 93.9 The Eagle.
93.9 The Eagle News Time with Robinson's Cleaners. It is 8:31 and Robinson saves you time. Sunny skies, 82 is our current temperature. We're expecting a high today of around 96 degrees. Heat index will make it feel like it's 103. Good morning. I'm Brian Houseworth. Great to have you with us. Here's some of the stories we are working on for you in this 8 o'clock hour. Missouri's Attorney General vows to go to Washington to battle socialism. Eric Schmidt winning a 21-candidate primary to capture the GOP U.S. Senate nomination with 46% of the vote on the Republican side. He'll face Democrat Trudy Bush Valentine in November. The winner of the Schmidt-Valentine November race replaces retiring Senator Roy Blunt on Capitol Hill. Meantime, here in Boone County, the clerk says 24% of registered voters cast ballots in the Tuesday primary election.
Republican ballots. Quality drywall construction owner Connie Leopard has defeated James Pounds to win the GOP nomination for Boone County presiding commissioner. Leopard has campaigned on public safety, ARPA funding, and broadband expansion. She'll face former Columbia Democratic State Representative Kip Kendrick in November. Kendrick has been campaigning across the county as well and served in the Missouri House for 6 years. Don Luzader, Zimmer News Network.
All right, Don, thank you. Longtime Kansas City television news anchor wins the GOP nomination for West Central Missouri's 4th Congressional District seat. It is a district that includes parts of North Columbia, northern Boone County. Mark Alford wins with 35% of the vote. He'll face Democrat Jack Truman of Lamar in November. And Columbia activist Roy Lovelady upsets Councilman Carl Scala here in Columbia. Lovelady joins us right after this newscast, 8:33. In sports, Adam Wainwright pitching 7 scoreless innings last night. St. Louis Cardinals beat the Cubs at Busch Stadium 6-0. Wainwright earning win number 8 of the year. Paul Goldschmidt, Dylan Carlson, Nolan Arenado hit a home run for St. Louis. Again, they win it 6-0. Adam Wainwright, win number 8 of the year. His record should be a lot better than 8-8. His ERA is right around 3. Hasn't had a whole lot of run support in a couple of games. Quite frankly, the bullpen just did not hold up, but he still has 8 wins on the year. Very impressive performance as of yesterday. Cardinals and the Cubs again tonight at Busch Stadium. White Sox beat the Royals yesterday. The final there was 9-2. Our news time, 8:34. Traffic check, midmohires.com. Local companies are looking for local people. Midmohires.com to find a job, post your job opening today. Our roads right now pretty quiet here in mid-Missouri. If you do want to report a traffic issue, you can give us a call or a text, 573-874-9390. We always appreciate the information that we get from you, whether it's on election results or whether it's about crashes. Always good information, and thank you so much. I'm Brian Houseworth, the 93.9 The Eagle.
This is Wake Up Mid-Missouri, featuring Branden Rathert on 93.9 The Eagle.
Mr. Carl here, his election is tomorrow, his re-election, I should say. And I've met your competitor in that hall. Do I care for him? No. Do I know he's listening? Yes.
That was interesting. Columbia City resident city council meeting the other night, getting up, looking the long-time incumbent Carl Scala saying, hey, your opponent, Roy Lovelady, who I've met out in the hallway. And I thought he was very honest, saying, I don't like him, but you know what? He listens to me. And, Brian, I want to make sure that I'm not overselling the magnitude of what happened yesterday in this local race between a 12-year incumbent and Roy Lovelady. Remember, there was a municipal election back in April, statistical dead heat, 1,102 votes apiece. I'm not overselling this, am I?
You're not overselling it at all. I've used the term in my copy, historic. It is historic. We have never had a tie in a Columbia election before in a municipal race. Now, we had one in McBain. We actually had one in McBain in April. We've had them in Ashland. We've had them in other communities. I have had one listener insist to me that Chester Edwards actually was involved in a tie election back in the 80s. I follow, and Chester Edwards ended up getting recalled. A lot of people will remember him. Well known. I think he's passed away. I don't remember him being in a tie election. I think I would have remembered that, but I did check with Brianna Lennon. She's not aware of it either, and they looked at the records. He may have been in a tough, tight re-election, but I think he was thinking of the recall. Bottom line, what Lovelady did here is historic. And it's huge.
Yeah, and we do get tie votes from time to time here in mid-Missouri. We've seen one in recent history, but you're talking usually in these hamlets like McBain and maybe Holt Summit, but not to the extent where you have two candidates getting over 1,100 votes. The guy who won that race is going to be joining us here shortly. But first, quick phone call from Rich. Rich, welcome into the show. What can I do for you, bud?
I wanted to congratulate Lovelady.
Okay, let me do this. Let me bring Roy here onto the show. Rich, you are on with Roy Lovelady.
Well, hello. You've run and beaten Carl Scala. I paid an extra $1,000 in rent so I could stay in that district so I could vote him out. Thank you.
Oh, wow.
Thank you so much.
Rich, thank you for the phone call, man. We appreciate you, bud.
Yes, and if you could do anything about solve this trash issue and get our trash picked up with no problems, that'd be great.
Well, you know what the amazing thing was there, Rich, was Carl Scala. He admitted, and I don't think he knew what he was doing, but he said in a city council meeting recently, the latest time they were taking up this trash, the roll cart issue, he said, I've been here for 12 years, and yeah, Carl, that is the problem, but it will be a problem no more. Rich, we appreciate you being a part of Wake Up Mid-Missouri here on 93.9 The Eagle. Roy Lovelady, man, Congratulations. How did it feel last night? You went through the municipal. Number one, you're facing a 12-year incumbent. Statistical dead heat 4 months ago in the municipal election. You campaign, you keep campaigning. Brian Houseworth, who lives in the 3rd District, says he saw you and Mr. Scala out campaigning. What was that like yesterday when the final votes came in second time around?
For a while, it was like an hour wait with no update. So those was the most nerve-wracking moments. But when the results came in, I just felt blessed.
All right, let me ask.
Anywhere.
So, and I think there's, I appreciate Rich calling in. He said he paid $1,000 extra. Did I hear that right, Brian? He paid an extra $1,000 a month in rent to stay in the 3rd Ward to vote Carl Scala out. I want to ask you this. What do you think? What is the difference between you and the 12-year incumbent? Why is it that you beat him? What is it that voters now find distasteful about that man?
To be honest, I don't know exactly what the difference is, but I will say that while he was seated there, he had an opportunity to make change. And I think that it came to a point where people just wanted something different because they weren't seeing anything different out of him. And I hope that I can live up to their expectations.
And I'm going to tell you
that's my goal.
Yeah, and you and I have already talked about this. In person, a lot of people are familiar with your background. You're very open. You enjoy kind of some celebrity status on the. And don't get mad at me, Roy, if I don't use the right word.
Won't.
Okay, the drag queen, whatever. You enjoy some celebrity status there. And the way it's been labeled, and I only do it because I had your permission over the months. The black, gay, cross-dressing, transvestite hairdresser is the guy that beat Carl Scala. And here's what that says to me, is that you beat Carl Scala. That's what's important. You heard that audio that I played from the city council meeting when a guy said, he said this in the council meeting, Roy. He said, I don't like Roy, but he's listening to me. I'm guessing he is one of those that voted for you. So we'll look forward to having you on occasionally in the future.
Yeah, Councilman-elect, we appreciate you. We look forward to covering you. And I did see Carl Scala, quite frankly. I saw him out in the ward campaigning very hard. I saw you out. You were out everywhere campaigning, and you were very visible carrying your signs and stuff like that. My question is, just in terms of the ward itself, I live there, and I've seen you out. Lots of poverty, as you know. We've had some crimes. I mean, McKee Street, the young lady shot in her own bed, killed, the drive-by shooting. I've got the court documents. The guy was hanging out the window of a car, shooting at the people on the driveway. I mean, that's scary, just off of Clark Lane. What can be done, Mr. Lovelady? I'm going to say Councilman-elect Lovelady. What can we do to keep the area safe and to stop this from happening? That's just unacceptable.
So I do have some plans for that, about like going throughout the community and starting. It's going to take a combination of both the police working together as well as the community working together in order to work towards changing some of these things. I know a lot of the people in Third Ward. I even know the family who was affected by the shooting, and I know the people who were shooting out of the car. So my goal is to penetrate in the community as much as possible and, see if we can prevent these from happening from the root of the problem, not just the from a police perspective.
Right. It goes. Listen. Here's my thing. We need, and please, Roy, please support any opportunity we get to enhance and provide the manpower we need within our with Columbia Police Department. Jeff Jones, he does amazing work, and it kills me what we saw in the city council earlier this week with some of these folks on the council saying, well, here's a way we can help combat crime in downtown, but let's pause on this whole video thing. It breaks my heart. I hope that you will do everything in your power on that city council to show support for law enforcement, especially because you've got personal dealings with this stuff. You know these people who were shot and killed. And I'm guessing you know James Gray. Mm-hmm. You know him?
I do.
Good. He does
incredible.
This guy is the real deal. And I hope that you and James are able to work together to help with some of these things. Roy, before we let you go, anything else you want to add?
No, I just want to say thank you to all that voted. I want to thank this radio station because you guys put a powerful message out lots and lots of times when there are times I didn't even listen to the radio station. But you guys were there and supporting and promoting. Thanks to all the voters. Just thank everybody. I'm humbly grateful, and I'm ready to work.
Roy, well, thank you. And you and I think we enjoy a very honest, helpful, a very honest, open relationship. Do you get people, because I want to stereotype here a little bit, I'm guessing the circles you hang out with, they ain't necessarily big fans of Wake Up Mid-Missouri on 93.9 The Eagle. But see, we're honest like that, and that's a beautiful thing. Have you been getting flack since you'd been coming on the show?
I wouldn't say I've been getting slack, but they're definitely inquiring about why would I speak on this radio station. But I was like, anybody that's willing to listen and speak and help me get voters, that's somebody that's listening to me, so I definitely want to listen back to them, and I want to respect them as they're respecting me.
Yeah, right. And here's the other thing, that's awesome. Yeah, and you tell those people now, well, you know what? I went on 93.9 The Eagle. I went up on Wake Up Mid-Missouri several times, and you know what? I won. I beat a 12-year incumbent. So the next time somebody gives you flack about coming on our show, Roy, you say, well, guess what? Here's what happened. I won. Okay?
Okay.
All right, Roy. I appreciate your sense of realness. I appreciate the fact that you accept where I stand socially and politically on things, and I appreciate the fact that that we have this acceptance of each other. And I think the world could use a lot more on that, even if we, just like that guy said in the city council meeting the other night. He says, I don't like Roy, but he listens, and that's what matters. That's right. Roy, have a blessed day, man.
All right, thank you. Likewise.
Thank you so much. And I would echo, and I think it's interesting. People are telling him, why would you go on the station? And to his credit, he does, because even though by the way, there's still a lot of Democrats who listen to 93.9 The Eagle. I know that because I hear from them. And the other thing is that conservative voter that called in that just said that he paid an extra $1,000 a month because he wanted, that gentleman voted for Roy Lovelady. And the last point I'd make, Brandon, about the third ward, and what he said, he knows obviously the family involved and that got shot and killed up there on McKee, and the suspect's family as well. The third ward does have a lot of poverty. There's no doubt about it. But there are so many people in there, and they don't have a lot of money, that work hard. I see them. I talked to a young lady yesterday. I'm not going to tell you what restaurant, but she works her tail off, young lady. And in this heat, I think she works 2 jobs. She was going to have to walk home in a certain neighborhood. I'm not going to give her exact neighborhood, but it was going to be quite a hike from the restaurant on Clark Lane. And the point is that, it is a poor ward, but I encourage people that are driving to look at the sidewalks up and down, especially during the day, and look at how many of those restaurant employees, gas station employees are on the side of the road. They don't have transportation. They're walking in the heat. There are a lot of hardworking people. They don't have a lot of money, but they're trying. And I can tell you they work very hard. And I think, of all the politicians that we've talked to in recent months, whether it's Senator Roy Blunt, Congresswoman Vicky Hartzler, Governor Mike Parson, I got to tell you, what this guy, Roy, and I hate to call him a politician, you run for office, you're a politician. He kind of is at this point. He is now, yeah. That is one of the most powerful conversations that we've had with any politician. That conversation right there. It was awesome. That guy who says, hey, so, because you get that, well, we don't agree. I hate your lifestyle. I hate this, and we got to win this argument. That's bull. You don't have to do that. That was powerful. That's why I hope you tell your friends about Wake Up Mid-Missouri here on 93.9 The Eagle and 93.9 TheEagle.com. And Hannah, if I'm being spiteful here, tell me. But here's
boy.
Because I listen. But here's the thing, Carl Scala today. he is going to have to go around town. And I'm guessing, people go up and say, hey, man, sorry you lost the race. Sorry you lost the race. Matter of fact, I've reached out to a bunch of people this morning, Taylor Burks. I've reached out to people like Congresswoman Vicky Hartzler. I've reached out to Billy Long this morning. I've reached out to all these people. So that happens. Imagine this, what it's like to be Carl Scala today. I don't imagine people are going to come up and say, oh, man, hey, I'm sorry you lost the race. I'm guessing it's going to be more like somebody in Carl's family has died. That's how he's going to be treated. Like, man, 12 years on the city council and you lost to a gay, black, cross-dressing, transvestite cross-dresser. That's the reaction that he's going to get today. Coming up, we're going to be doing some leftovers. See what's in our refrigerator of leftovers this
Opinions on social issues? We throw those around too. Wake Up Mid-Missouri on 93.9 The Eagle. Here's a big old serving of leftovers on 93.9 The Eagle. Enjoy.
All right, let's open up the refrigerator here in the Wake Up Mid-Missouri studio, see some of the things we did not get you. I think we pretty much, I don't think there's any leftovers in the fridge. We're going to have to order in, Hannah.
Wow, that's a first.
I know. Well, obviously, uber focused this morning on the elections on a state level and within the congressional districts, 3rd and 4th congressional districts, and then local. I mean, just really big races all around. Eric Schmidt, the big surprise there is the margin of victory that Eric Schmidt got in that race. A lot of talk from Republicans in Washington, D.C. So, right now, one of the things that's happening in Washington, D.C. with Uncle Joe there are more and more folks on the Democrat side. They're saying, no, Joe, we don't need you to come campaign for us. We ain't interested.
It's more or less like a, dear God, please no.
Yeah.
No.
And we're seeing that there was a lot of that same talk. So that's the talk in D.C. A lot of these Democrats are like, man, can we keep Joe locked up in the basement for a while? And no, thanks. We don't need you to come campaign. There was that same talk surrounding our former governor and former Democrat Eric Greitens. There was a lot of talk in D.C., and not just amongst Missouri politicians. There was a lot of talk in the GOP party that, like, God, we can't have this on us. We really can't.
So I saw a tweet last night that cracked me up about Greitens, and it was when Schmidt really started to pull ahead. And the tweet said, I hear Greitens is ready to concede, but he's a little tied up right now.
Oh, God. Somebody said, hide the kids because Eric Greitens lost.
That one's not as funny.
Yeah, that one went a little far. Again, those are allegations. Nothing has been proven there. But staying on the theme of elections in St. Louis, they had some pretty nasty problems. This is from our NBC affiliate, KSTK in St. Louis. Police called to a brawl involving 40 people. Candidates trying to run over each other, a death threat from one voter to a candidate, campaign supporters refusing to let voters in a polling place. None of this apparently resulted in any reports of arrest. That's the STL for you, man. That's insane. But I will say this.